The story begins with our protagonist Kenji, who is a kind person. He always helps people in need. When he was going to school like any other day, he heard some bullies bullying a student who was in his class. The bullies called Kenji and told him that the guy they were bullying didn't have a mother. He only had one picture of her which they were going to tear into pieces because he didn't have money to pay them. If Kenji didn't buy those pictures for him, they were going to tear it for real. Kenji was furious and tried to talk things out, but they only listened to him when he gave them $100. They make it look like they weren't doing anything bad. They were being fair. The kid who was being bullied thanks him and calls him kind, which makes him very happy. Then the kid asks Kenji why he was trying to be so kind. Kenji told him that he needed to do it to this extent because he had a reason. When he arrives at the school, everyone greets him cheerfully. He is happy to see a girl named Sujin, who greets him as well and asks for his help in throwing the trash bags. She praised him for helping out their classmates and told him how everyone in the class was talking about this. He was glad to hear her say that about him. Just then, we see the bullies who were playing games with the money that he extorted from him. Shin Jae-young, the thug from earlier, calls Sujin. Sujin hesitantly greets him. She looks troubled, which makes Kenji think that they are bullying her. The bully calls for her again and tells Kenji to get lost. Sujin assured him that she would be all right and told him to go on ahead. Kenji was confused as to what he should do. He wonders if he should call his uncle if the situation escalates. After he was gone, the rest of the thugs also went to their class, leaving those two alone. Sujin wants him not to make it obvious when they are inside the school. We came to know that these two were secretly dating. While they were flirting, we see that Kenji was still there, hiding from them. He was fuming with anger and felt betrayed. When he came back to his class, his eyes were dead from what he had seen. He messages Suhin to meet him after school as he has something to talk to her about. When school ended, they both were going to go home together like they used to before. Kenji finally mustered up the courage to ask her if she was really dating Shin Jae-young. She was put on the spot and got nervous a little, but she doesn't deny it. She says that they just started dating somehow and that she was about to tell him. Kang was speechless. He didn't know what to say. We see a flashback where Sujin's drunk dad was looking for her after she ran away. He used to beat her after getting drunk. We see Kenji and Sujin hiding together. This is when she told him that she was never going to marry someone like his father. She was going to marry someone who was kind, like Kenji. This is when Kenji decides to become a really kind person for her. End of the flashback. Now in the present, Kenji confronts her about what she had said in the past, how she wanted to date someone who was kind, and Shingyun was far from being kind. He was a bully. To which she replies that she dated a kind and friendly person once, but he was just too boring and nice all the time. A bad guy, on the other hand, they are rough, attractive, and way cooler. Kenji was stunned. All these years, his efforts to be kind to her were for nothing. She didn't care about nice guys now. She was into bad boys. In the moment of desperation, he grabs her hand and starts saying stuff like he was way meaner than Shin Jae-young. He was acting to be a kind person all this time. He was not just a bully, he was a gangster. A gangster's blood runs through his veins. He was saying all this while crying continuously. But she just laughs at him and calls him a kind person who was worried about her because she was dating a bully. Kangjin tries to convince himself it is all right for her to date a bully. On the way to their home, Shin Jae-young takes Sujin with her and warns Kenji not to hang out with her anymore. Sujin stops him from picking on Kenji and takes him with her while flirting in front of him. Kenji couldn't take it anymore. He had spent the last 10 years of his life trying to act kind even when it was hard, and all of that was for nothing. So he decided to become a bad person himself. When he was saying a gangster's blood runs through his veins, he wasn't lying. When he enters his home, all gang members are bowing before him. His household was a gangster household, and he was going to show her what a really bad person looks like. He asked about where his uncle was and came bursting through the door and asked him to help him become a bad person. His uncle didn't know what happened to him all of a sudden, but he wanted to see this look on his face for a long time. He had worked hard for the past 10 years to become kind, so his uncle warned him that it would only take an instant to become a bad guy. But Kenji was ready to abandon all the work that he put in for the past 10 years. The first thing his uncle told him to get rid of was his good and nice boy vibes. He needed to change his dressing sense as well, and he was also prohibited from smiling nicely. He needed to put on a serious face all the time. His uncle asks him why he wanted to become a bad person all of a sudden, to which he replies that he has no reason to be kind anymore while thinking about Sujin and Shin Jae-young. Even though he asked for their help, He still wasn't sure if could become a bad person like them. His uncle number 2 comes to his room to dress him up for the occasion. Kenji comes out wearing gold chains and all, just like a thug or gangster. He was hesitant if he could really wear this in school, but his uncles assured him that he looked great. When he was walking down the school hallway, everyone was staring at him. He wanted to greet them badly, but his uncle prohibited him from doing that. When a girl greets him, he tries to be rude to her but starts stuttering. When he enters the class, his friends greet him and he tries to be rude to them too, but he stutters again. Everyone was wondering what was wrong with him today and why he dressed like that. Sujin sees him and asks him to go to the cafeteria with her. He couldn't say no to her and agreed to go in a rude way. Everyone in the class thought they had a fight. Kenji was giving her the cold shoulder on their way. She asks him why he was giving her a cold shoulder and that he was acting like a different person. Kenji doesn't deny it, but he tells her that she was the one who changed first. After that, he told her to head to the cafeteria by herself. 10 years ago, he changed himself because of her, and now he was changing himself again because of her. This was the first time Kenji was skipping class. Behind the school building, he sees Shin Jae-yong and a bunch of other guys skipping classes and smoking. Shin Jae-yong goes to eat something outside with a girl. Kenji wanted to learn what guys like them do when they skip school, so he follows them. He sees both of them being chummy with each other and wonders if he is dating this girl too. He couldn't take it that Shin was taking Sujin for granted. He was furious. They arrive at Shin's house. The girl just wanted to go to a ramen shop, so she refused to go inside. When he starts forcing her to come inside, she slaps him, which makes him angry. He was about to slap her as well. Kenji was not sure if he should call the cops on him. He decides to take matters into his own hands and throws a rock at him, but it hits the girl instead. He had messed up big time, but he was not giving up just yet. He throws another rock at him, but his ring gets thrown away as well. This time the rock hit Shin straight to the forehead. While Shin was figuring out what was going on, Kenji took her hands and ran away, while Shin screamed at him to kill him. The girl also yells at him for hitting her in the head, but she understands that he is trying to help her and goes along with him. Even though he did manage to pull that off on impulse, he didn't know what to do next. He stitches her up and explains the situation, but she already knows and jokes about it. She introduces herself as Yeji. She was in the same class as he was, but she didn't recognize him. When he introduced himself as Kenji, she was shocked. He had heard about him that he was kind to everyone and experienced it firsthand. But Ken keeps telling her that he is not kind, he is mean. He only helped her because she was in a serious situation. He asked her if she likes bad guys like Shin Jae-yong too. She told him that she liked guys who were free-spirited but not someone like Shin. Kenji wonders if he would be able to become a trash like him as well. While she was laughing at him, Shin called him. Kenji asked her not to mention his name. Shin was pissed and asked him about the guy who helped her because he was wearing the same dress as their school. But she also threatens to go to the police if he ever talks to her like that and hangs up the phone. She didn't want the police to get involved herself because she was the one who hit him first. She thanks Kenji and leaves. During lunch, his friends ask him why he looks like Shin Gyeong. This makes him happy because he is trying to look like him. His friends freak out after hearing that. Just then, Yeji comes there to eat lunch with him. She told his friend that he helped him, but Kenji left first because he didn't want anyone to know about that incident. Yeji goes with him too. His friends were happy for him on the outside, but inside, they were super envious. Sujin also sees both of them working together. The teachers had asked for Kenji because he skipped a class. He didn't want to make them angry and started taking off the gold chains and all the accessories. He realizes that his ring is gone. That ring was given to him by his second uncle who had got it from the boss himself. It was very precious to him. Kenji was panicking when he lost the ring. While he was looking for the ring in his class, Shin Jae-yong came there and kicked him for blocking his way. Shin noticed that his back looked similar to the guy who threw that stone at him. He starts stomping on him and takes his anger out on him, while Sujin is just standing there and watching him get beaten up. Just then, Yeji comes there and stops him, saying she was the one he should be angry at. He asks her again who was the guy who helped her, but she didn't answer him. As he was about to hit her, Yeji started thinking, who is he afraid of other than the teachers? She told him that the guy's name was Songjin-seok. We see Songjong, who was a muscular guy and was sleeping in the class. Shin was scared of waking him up, but he couldn't just leave it be. So he tries to wake him up, and when he doesn't wake up, he kicks his desk, shocking everyone in the class. Yeji thought he would leave him alone because he was scared of him, but her plan was now busted. Songjin was annoyed by him. Shin asks him if he was the one who helped Yeji that day. Songjin sees Yeji and Kenji and says that he might have helped her. Shin gets angry, grabs Song by the collar, and threatens to finish him. Song just grabs his hands, making Shin come to his senses and realize who he was messing with. He lashes out at Yeji and the class for staring at him. While leaving the class, he takes a closer look at Kenji, saying the guy looked about his size though. But there was no way a loser like him could attack him, and he left after that. Kenji noticed the ring that he was wearing, which belonged to his uncle. Yeji immediately comes forward to help Kenji, while Sujin is jealous and angry seeing Yeji being friendly with him. Yeji asks Songjin for help, but Kang leaves after saying he is alright. While coming back home, he wonders how he should explain this to his uncle. When he enters the house, everyone is baffled and furious seeing his brushed face. They were preparing to on war with whoever did this to him. His second uncle also sees the commotion, and when he is filled with what is going on, he is ready to fight. But the first uncle stops them, saying he needs to fight on his own. They have a strategy meeting to make him strong and good at fighting. But before that, he needed to score one victory on his own. His uncle suggests he beat someone weaker than him in a fight. After that, they would start his training. The next day, everyone wishes him luck. He was already panicking over how he should get back the ring from Shin, and now he also had to fight someone. Just then, sees the grandma whom he used to help, but he remembers what his uncle told him and runs away while crying. Coincidentally, he meets the grandpa he used to help as well, and again he runs while crying. Then he sees a few thug school students who cross the road while the traffic was on. He also wants to do that, but when he tries, he gets scolded by a truck driver, making him apologize to him instinctively. He waits for the next round and runs as fast as he can. This time, he managed to cross the road while the traffic was on. On the way, he sees Sujin and is about to greet her when he sees Shin Jae-young with him. He hides from them and sees that she looks happy with him, so he decides to work even harder to become a bad person. He sees Yeji and a few other girls extorting money from the same guy who was being bullied the last time. The other girl told Kenji scram, and the kid thought he was saved now that he was here. Yeji starts doing her makeup after seeing Kenji. Instead of helping him, Kan orders him to give all the money he had to him or he would beat the shit out of him. His second uncle was watching all this and got emotional seeing their young master grow. It was like seeing his younger self. The girls were impressed by Kenji, saying he looked like a real man. But Yeji was not happy with this. The guy gives him the money thinking he was just faking it and would give him back after taking it from him. Kan splits the money and gives it to the girls. The girls say that he is on the same level as Shin Jae-young, which makes him happy. But Yeji is not impressed by this. While his uncle was going back, he bumped into Shin Jae-young and saw the ring on his fingers. He is confused and shocked to see his ring and wonders if he is Kenji's friend. Shin keeps getting on his nerves, but he didn't fight him. He was praying that this guy wouldn't be his young master's friend so that he could beat the hell out of him. At the school, the chief teacher calls Kenji to the office. He told him to bring his father the next day because he was becoming a problem child. But Kang immediately denies it because he knows it wouldn't be a good idea to bring his father there. The other teachers were surprised to see Kenji talking back. Kenji made an excuse saying his father was out of town and asked him to let him bring his uncle instead. Kenji's friend was worried about him and followed him to the office. He freaked out when he heard that they wanted him to bring his parents, but he was surprised to see him calm. At the house, he told his uncles that the teacher was asking to meet one of them. Every one of them wanted to be the one to go with him, so they decided to solve this with rock, paper, scissors. And the winner was the second uncle. He marks the first uncle but gets smacked instead. The next day, the second uncle was ready to go to school with him in his very normal and formal dress. Kenji was speechless after seeing his second uncle's drip and just asked him to hurry up. On the way, people suddenly start to greet the second uncle, making Kang wonder how could he be so respected with that outfit and non-threatening face. The second uncle asked him if he was doing any bad things. The uncle then taught him how to spit like a gangster. He even showed him how to work like a man and ordered him to work like that until they arrived at the school. Kenji was embarrassed and wished that the first uncle was here with him. He wished that he hadn't run into Sujin. The students recognize Kenji, but they wonder why he was with a gangster. When they arrive at the school, the second uncle asks him if he still has the soul ring that he had given to him. Kenji gets nervous and lies to him, saying he put it in his room to keep it safe. In the hallway, Yeji sees him with his uncle and is confused as to why he is doing this. Kenji hides his face from her. Kenji showed him the teacher's office and told him that he had to get to his class, but he wonders if he is going to be okay. When he arrived in the teacher's office, The teachers couldn't believe that he was Kanji's uncle. They even considered calling the cops on him, but the head teacher assured them that he would take care of him. The junior teachers were impressed by him. The head teacher took him to the consultant room to talk to him privately, while the other teacher admired his bravery. But as soon as he got along with him, the head teacher started sucking up to him, praising how they treasure Kanji the most. He even poured him some tea to please him. The teacher asked him why he called him Hair. It was because Kanji was misbehaving lately, even though he was the next candidate for the school president. The second uncle asked him if he is calling Kanji the problem child, with a slight smile on his face. The head teacher thought he was mad and took it back, which made him mad for real this time. The second uncle was happy that Kanji was being a problem child. The head teacher was confused, but he knew that they needed to be on the same frequency if he wanted to live. Even though he didn't know why, he just felt like he should say that he was a very problematic child. The second uncle was glad to hear that. Then the second uncle asked the head teacher if there were students who were extorting valuables from other students. The head teacher freaked out and denied that allegation. The second uncle left in anger after that. The head teacher was finally relieved that he left. The second uncle thought about the bully who stole his soul ring and wondered if could meet him. He was fuming with anger, although he wanted to find that guy and kill him. But he remembered what the first uncle had told him about letting Kanji fight his own battle. Jeongcheol got lucky this time. On the other hand, Jeongcheol was staring at the ring and was planning to sell it and buy a motorbike with that money. He was thankful that he got hit by that rock. In the class, Kanji was worried about the meeting. He asked his friend if he thought that the meeting went well. His reaction said it all. Just then, the head teacher entered the class and avoided eye contact with Kanji. Kanji wondered if his uncle threatened the teacher. He was going to ask his uncle directly. Kanji interrupts the class, asking him for permission to go to the bathroom. The teacher got angry, but when he saw that it was Kanji, his demeanor completely changed, and he permitted him to go. This made him sure that something must have happened between them. He called the first uncle, but he was busy doing something important. They were throwing a surprise party for Kanji for being a problem child. The third uncle handed him the phone. When King asked what he talked to the teacher, he says that he took care of it, which made Kanji even more anxious. Before he could ask him more, the first uncle took the phone and reminded him of the mission that he had to carry out that day, to beat up someone weaker than him. After he hung up, Ken started his search for someone weaker than him. He put himself on a level 1 scale to compare his strength to the other students. He saw 2 students coming toward him and wondered if he could beat him, but they were slightly stronger than him. He kept looking for someone weaker than him, but he couldn't seem to find someone. Even his friends were stronger than him. He got tired of searching, but he couldn't find anyone weaker than him. He was pondering his head in the bathroom when the big guy, Sungjin, asked him to move out of the way as he was blocking the sink. We see that Sungjin was on level 70, a number he could only hope to achieve. He says to himself how someone like him should have been the son of the Fire Bear Gang's boss. When he thought there was no one weaker than him, the guy whom he used to save from bullies, and the guy from whom he extorted money today was there. He was asking for the $40 that he pretended to extort from him. Kanji lit up seeing him. The guy was on level 0. While the guy was complimenting how real his acting looked this morning, Kanji grabbed him by the collar and asked him to become the sacrificial lamb for his first victory. Kanji apologized to him before attacking Sengu. While Sengu was confused about what he did wrong, he asked Songjung for help. Kenji didn't realize he was still there and thought he was done for, but instead of helping him, Songjung just left without saying anything. This was Kenji's chance. All he needed to do was to just hit him once. He even closes his eyes to do that, but even then he can't do it and lets go of him. Sengu ran after getting released while cussing him. He couldn't bring himself to hurt him. He wondered if he was mean and if he had finally become a bad person, but it didn't feel as great as he had hoped. All this time he put in being a kind person was going to disappear just like that. He remembers the times when he saved the guy. Even though he just grabbed him by the collar, he felt horrible, but he was determined to be a mean person for Sujin. The only reason he was living as a kind person was for Sujin, but now he had no reason to do that. When he got to the class, everyone was looking at him as Songgu had told the whole class about the incident. Sujin didn't believe it and asked Kenji if what he was saying was true. Even the other classmates didn't believe he could do something like that. When Sujin kept asking him, Kenji asked him to just stop. He pointed out how she used to hate people who put on makeup and did not dress properly. But now look at her. But Kenji wasn't criticizing her. Instead, he gave her a compliment that she looked good. But unfortunately for him, Shin Jeong-cheol heard him giving her compliments and thought he was flirting with him, even though he had ordered him the last time to be away from her. Kenji tried to explain the situation, but Shin slapped him and asked the other to grab him. He needed to teach him a lesson. Shin started beating him. He punched him in the stomach, but as he was going to hit him again with his dominant hand, Sujin asked him to stop. Seeing them covering for each other, Shin figured that something was going on between them, just like he had thought. He left Kenji alone for a moment and was about to beat her up first. But Kenji screamed at him to stop while calling him human trash. He was okay with him dating her, even beating him in front of her. But he was not going to let him beat her. Kenji threatened to kill him if he even touched her. Even Songjung, who was sleeping, woke up from his scream. Sujin had never heard him say those words before and was surprised. Shin Jian makes fun of him, pointing out what kind of situation he was in. Kenji again thinks about the past and how Sujin changed to date someone like him. But he was going to beat his boyfriend to become the bad guy that she liked. Kenji was expecting to get him, but he tried to hit him first with his leg. Before Shin could hit him, he got hit in the face instead. But it wasn't Kenji who hit him. It was Sungju. Everyone was baffled to see Sungju getting involved. Shin screamed at him saying he had gotten insane. But Sungju didn't stop and gave him another punch. Meanwhile, his friend didn't even try to get involved as they had no intention of dying. Shin asked him again why he was butting in, and why he always messes with him. Sungju told him that he was the only one who messed around all the time before hitting him with another punch. But this time he hit him with his dominant left hand. Shin was down after this hit. The others left Kenji and took Shin with them. Sungju offered him a hand and took him to the nurse's office. But Kenji was worried that his shoulder might fall off first though, from his heavy hands. On the other hand, Shin and his two lackeys were making plans to get back at Sungju. But even if all three of them were to attack him, they would still lose. He wasn't even using his full strength. He just punched him with his shoulder strength while sitting. The two lackeys were afraid to get back at him, but Shin had plans for him. If he couldn't beat him himself, he just had to tap into his connections. Sungju took Kenji to the nurse's office, and as he was leaving, Kenji asked him why he didn't stop him when he was about to hit Sunggu in the bathroom, to which Songjung replied that he must have a reason, because he wasn't the kind of guy to do something like that without any reason. Kenji felt bad as he was actually about to hit him without any reason. Then Kenji asks him why he always saves him from Shin Jeong. Songjung doesn't give a clear answer and just says that the guy deserves to get hit, and that Kenji just happens to be saved in the process. He leaves after that without answering any more of his questions. In the cafeteria, Yeji was trying to befriend Kenji's friends, but the smart one of the two easily figured out that she was just trying to be friends with Kenji. The other friend told her that he didn't want to be friends with a bully like her. Yeji gives him a dry apology. Yeji tries to butter them up by asking if they have girlfriends. The dumb friends deduced that Yeji was trying to be his girlfriend. He immediately told her that he didn't like a bully like her, but he was okay if it was Yeji. Both of them had no idea what he was blabbering about. He kept talking nonsense, which started to piss off Yeji. She asked them for the last time if they knew what was Kenji's type. The dumb friend suggested she should ask Sujin, who had been friends with him for the longest time. The smart one thinks to himself how stupid he is. She came to them because she didn't want to ask her. She decided to ask him directly. After she was gone, the dumb friend asked the other friend if Yeji was into him. On the way, two of her friends told her that Kenji was in the nurse's office after getting beaten up. She ran to the nurse's office after hearing this. Her friends were worried that she might be into losers. Yeji was feeling anxious and was concerned about him not knowing why. She rushes to the nurse's office while stumbling upon things. We see that Kenji was trying to hold his voice while crying. When he heard the door opening, he thought it was the doctor, and that she might see him crying. So he pretends to be asleep. She asked him about his condition while being angry at Shin Jeong. She didn't disturb him while he slept and left the food there. She left the room in anger and determined to teach Shin Jeong a lesson. After she is gone, Kenji wonders why she brought food for him. Just then, he heard someone else on the door, so he pretended to sleep again. It was Sujin on the door. He didn't want her to see his crying face, so he kept on his act. Sujin saw the food that Yeji left for him. She picked it up and threw it in the dustbin while exclaiming how Yeji was being annoying and that Kenji didn't like girls like her. She was about to put her hand on his head, which made Kenji flustered. But before that, Songjung came there with the doctor. The doctor asked her if she knows how he got hurt. Both Songjung and Kenji were waiting for her response. She made an excuse to save his boyfriend by saying that he fell down the stairs. Kenji was holding back his tears while Songjung was just disappointed in her. The doctor just thought that he must have fallen down the stairs while helping someone like always. She also says how lucky Kenji was to have a friend like her. After she left, the doctor noticed that Kenji was up. He was crying while holding his voice. The doctor thought he was enduring the pain so that Sujin didn't get worried. He asked her to just give him a moment. She assured him to cry as much as he wanted. She was not going to let anyone come in. Kenji cried his heart out after hearing her lie to save his boyfriend over him, her childhood friend. Meanwhile, Shin was asking his lackey to sell his ring in the market. Just then, Yeji comes there yelling at him. The other two leave the two of them alone. She lashes out at him for beating up Kenji. He pointed out that he was the victim today, but she didn't believe that he could be the victim. She was disgusted with herself for liking him at one point. Shin blames her for falling for him as he didn't approach her. She did. Meanwhile, Sujin couldn't get in touch with Shin, so she came looking for him. When she finds out Shin is with Yeji, Shin threatened to beat even her if she kept coming closer to him. He blamed her for liking him even though she exactly knew who she was. Sujin was shocked to hear Yeji liked him. Shin further goes on to ask her out even after all that. Sujin couldn't believe her eyes and started crying. Yeji obviously denied him and threatened to report him to the police. Meanwhile, Sujin was trying to convince herself that Shin was doing that because she kept hitting on him persistently. He was doing that to get rid of her, and that he might be a bad guy, but he would never do that to her. She came out asking them to stop crying. Yeji was surprised to see her there. Shin was fed up with these ladies making a fuss and was annoyed at her. Sujin asked him if he was really dating Yeji. Shin told her that he wasn't and that he was going to break up with her too. Sujin couldn't believe what he was saying. It was like her whole came crashing down. Yeji was surprised that these two were dating. Shin has had enough, so he left without saying anything. Yeji asked her if she is really dating Shin, and if she is okay. But she was too shocked to say anything at the time. Kenji left the nurse's office without any treatment. He was also trying to convince himself that she would have done the same thing for him if he were her boyfriend, and that it was his fault for not being her boyfriend. To do that, he needed to become a bad guy by beating someone up, but he didn't want to beat someone weaker than him. But there was one person he was fine with beating him, Shin Jeong. When he got back home, he noticed that it was unusually quiet. When he goes further inside, he sees all his uncles leaning on their heads. When he was wondering what was going on, he heard a familiar voice. It was his father's voice, who was slightly impressed that he was home even though he should be at school, and he was even dressed differently. Kenji was shocked to see his father all of a sudden after all this time. He asked him why he was there. His father ordered him to sit first. Kenji instinctively sits down. He was here after 3 years because he had heard about him being a problem child. Only then did Kenji notice the poster behind him, celebrating him being a problem child. But the father was disappointed to hear that he was the type of problem child who gets beaten up instead of conquering the school and any turfs. That's the reason all the uncles were in that state as a punishment. He states that he didn't give him 10 years to celebrate his getting beaten up. He ordered the first uncle to begin his successors training starting tomorrow. Kenji tried to reason with him, but his father reminded him how he gave him time because he wanted to be kind to a girl. But all this time, he was just getting beaten up. He also states that he would not force him if he rejects the training, but in return, he'd also not see his face for the rest of his life, meaning that they would no longer be father and son. He had no use for a pathetic and weak son like him, he said. Kenji burst into tears while telling him how hard the last 10 years were for him as well. He didn't choose to be born as the son of a gangster, and he wanted to live his own life. The boss told him that he was not going to wait forever for him to succeed him. He had already expected him to reject the successor's training and had a different plan in mind. He was going to cut all ties with him and told Kenji that there were a lot of people around the world who could be called his son, but he was hoping Kenji to be his successor. Kenji asked for some time to think about it, but he had already given him 10 years, He couldn't wait any longer. He had until tomorrow to give his answer. If he didn't accept the training, their relationship would be over. Kenji was devastated, calling him the worst father ever. His uncles were worried. They didn't expect the boss to come all of a sudden. Not only that, but if Kenji was no longer boss's son, their faction would also be discarded. The first uncle goes to talk to Kenji. He asked him how he was, and he if really got beaten up again. He asked him if he at least beat one weak guy, but he told him that he couldn't do it. The first uncle suggests why he doesn't get stronger, and then he could beat any bad guy he wanted, and asked him to accept the successor's training to get stronger. But Kenji says he still wasn't ready for it. The first uncle told him that he needed to grow stronger if he wanted to protect the things he cared about. He left after that. While Kenji was pondering his head over what he needed to save, he got a call from Sujin. She told him how she was having a hard time while crying. Kenji asked her for details of what happened. He is furious at Shin Jeong for making her cry. He goes to his uncle and announces that he has made up his mind. He was going to accept the successor's training. To beat the bad guys, he was going to become the worst person. He requested his uncles to help him get stronger. They assured him and asked him to leave it to them. They've been waiting for this moment for 10 years. The first uncle informed him that he couldn't go to school during the training. Kenji agreed to that as well. This time he was committed to learning how to fight. The first uncle left him in his second uncle's care as he used to be an athlete himself. It was an emotional moment for the uncles. The second uncle asked him about the ring he had given to him again. He asked him to tell the truth this time. Kenji didn't lie this time and told him that he lost the ring to the guy he wanted to beat up. The second uncle told him that if he wanted, he could take it back from the guy in a few seconds. Although that would be the easiest way to get it done, but Kenji wanted to get it back on his own after beating him. This is the answer that the second uncle was hoping he'd give. He hugged him and ordered him to change into the battle suit for their training. Kenji understood the assignment. Since he has decided to accept the successor's training, there was no turning back now. From this moment forward, he was no longer Kang Jeong, who was a normal student. He was not the Fire Bee Gang's successor, Kang Jeong. The story continues with the second uncle preparing Kenji for the successor training. He starts his training with the basic physical fitness training test. They start with the 3 common exercises. The first one being squat. He first gave him the empty bar to lift without any weights on it, but he was struggling even to pick that up. He could only squat 20 kilograms. The second uncle was looking worried now. Then they move on to the bench press. Kenji was ready to bench press, but he pointed out if he must help him in that position. Kenji could bench press only 20 kilograms as well. The second uncle realized that he was weak as F. He wasn't sure what kind of training he should give him. Then they move on to the last exercise, which was deadlift. The second uncle didn't have any expectations at this point, but much to his surprise, Kenji could easily lift the bar. Even after they put on lots of weight, it was easy work for him. He told the uncle that he could go for it even more easily. The second uncle was confused as to how that was even possible. He figured that he must have built up his muscles from always helping others in need. To test his grip power, his second uncle challenged him to wrestle. Kenji said to him that he had no chance of winning against him. Even the other uncles were pointing out how unfair that was. But the second uncle had a theory for his source of strength, and he wanted to test that. The match begins, and Kenji starts overpowering him almost immediately. The other uncles thought he was going easy on him on purpose, but only the second uncle knew he was giving it his all. Even the other uncles started to wonder if he was overpowering him in wrestling. It was indeed the power of his grip that helped him deadlift. Ever since he was a kid, he has always given all of them body massages for 10 years now. During this time, his muscles grew, and he acquired a monstrous grip. The second uncle was proud of him, but he wasn't going to let him win easily, and he went all out. But even then, Kenji wasn't even budging. The second uncle lost eventually. He was sure that if he guided him to use his power, he could become the strongest person in the school. Even unifying a whole territory wouldn't be impossible. This was the first time he saw the Fire Bear Gang's image in him. The second uncle asked him to lie beside him and told him that he had the potential to become way stronger. But Kenji didn't believe him and thought that he let him win on purpose. The second uncle assured him that he'd train him in a way that he never lose to anyone again. And to do that, they'd need to start the closed-door training. During this training, contact from the outside world was prohibited. Kenji was hesitant at first, but the second uncle told him that if he wanted to protect what he loved, he needed to make this sacrifice. If he did that, he would make him the strongest for sure. Kenji agreed to the condition and they worked inside the training room like a man. 3 days had passed since then. Kenji wasn't coming to school. Sungjung wondered if something happened to him and asked his friends. They also tried to contact him, but he wasn't picking up their phone. They even went to his house, but seeing his uncles, they got scared and ran away. Sungjung was slightly worried about him. When he returns home from school, he is greeted by his little sister who is waiting for him outside alone. She told him how bored she was because recently that kind of oppa wasn't coming to play with him. She was talking about Kenji. She was worried thinking he might have fainted somewhere while helping someone as he did to her when she needed help. She told Sungjung to check up on him. Sungjung agreed to her request. He took his address from the school and came to see him. He encountered Kenji's uncles who were suspicious of him, but when he told them he was Kenji's friend, they treated him like a prince and let him inside. But the first uncle scolds them for letting anyone in without identifying their identity. Songjung was glad that he had his wallet with him. Otherwise, things could have been horrifying for him. The second asks about the purpose of his coming there. Songjung replied that he was worried about Kenji as he didn't come to school or accept their calls. The first uncle sees the judo club bag that he had and calls for the second uncle. When the second uncle saw him, he immediately recognized him. The second uncle reminded the first uncle that he was close to Lee Do Park, the guy he was going to introduce to him. They had a meal together once due to their mutual friend. They take him to the training room. Songjung was surprised to see Kenji training instead of attending school. The second uncle asked Songjung to spar with him, but Songjung thought that he was being unreasonable. There was no way Kenji was going to defeat him in judo, and there was a huge gap in strength too. But the second uncle advised him to watch closely, as what he was doing wasn't judo. Kenji grabbed the third uncle by the collar. Songjung points out that his positioning was wrong. He wasn't using his left arm, but only his right arm. There was no way he could do that without both of his arms. But much to his surprise, Kenji lifted him with the strength of just one of his hands and slammed him onto the ground, calling his technique a deadly one-arm throw. Songjung was speechless after seeing his crazy grip strength. It was illogical to see him do that with his physique. The second uncle says that he, Songjung, was on the same level as their mutual friend Do Park. He could be considered one of the top few in the country. Kenji wasn't looking for any gold medal. He just wanted to be stronger desperately to beat some guys. Songjung comes forward to spar with him without the second uncle asking him. Kenji was surprised by Songjung there. The second uncle explained to him that he wanted him to fight some his age, who was much stronger than he was. If he manages to stand his ground against him, most of the other school kids would be a piece of cake for him. But Kenji was terrified of him. He had been training for only a few days. The difference between their techniques and physique was huge. In the first round, Songjung completely overpowered Kenji. He didn't even have to use any of his techniques to deal with him. But Kenji gets up again, and this time he didn't get caught by Songjung. He stepped back in time and was now in a boxing stance. But Songjung could see his punch coming from miles away and easily blocked him. But even though he blocked it, Kenji's punches felt heavy due to his grip strength. Kenji then tries to tackle him, but Songjung thought to himself how foolish that technique was against him, who has way more weight than him. But much to his surprise, Kenji wasn't trying to tackle him. He started pinching him with his crazy grip strength. He started crushing his thighs. The pain was unbearable, so Songjung fought back but missed. Songjung didn't expect him to use an underhand trick like that. The third uncle gets angry at the second uncle for teaching him such a cowardly technique. He told him that he wasn't just pinching Songjung, but causing huge damage to his muscle with his monstrous grip. It was a different kind of acupressure. Songjung couldn't use his leg for a moment. Kenji attacked him again, which Songjung easily blocked. He asked him if wanted to take him on, but at this point, Kenji wasn't even listening to him. Kenji attacked Songjung while he was talking. He punched him in the neck, which pissed him off. Seong asked him if he was targeting his Adam's apple. Kenji apologized to him and explained to him that he couldn't reach his chin because he was too tall for him. But it was too late. Songjung calls his moves cowardly and is ready to take him on for real this time. A few moments later, we see that they both were out of breath and Kenji was on the ground. Songjung asks him why he lost to someone like Shin Jeong when he was this strong. The second uncle informed him that he never got into a fight and always avoided it cowardly. He used to get scared even before the fight started. That's why he needed to fight someone strong like Songjung to get rid of that mindset. The second uncle expressed his gratitude and guided him to the dinner table. After he is gone, The second uncle goes to check up on Kenji, but he is surprised to see him smiling. Kenji says to him how he was feeling refreshed after fighting. The second uncle cooks beef for them. Songjun was a little surprised because he doesn't normally get to eat that stuff. The second uncle was blunt and asked him to train with Kenji for 1 week and he would provide for his food and other needs. But he couldn't agree to come there every day during the night as he had a sister. The uncle asked him to come after his school, but he had a judo club after school. But the second uncle took care of that. He called his senior Du Park and told him that he was giving Songjun special training for a week. He promised to give him special training in judo after he was done practicing with the young master. While eating the meal, Songjun looked a little disappointed. Kenji asked him if he didn't like the food, but that was not the case. Kenji requests the second uncle for something. While Songjun is leaving, Kenji works out with him and gives him the beef for his younger sister as well. Songjun was happy and smiled slightly because he knew she would love it. The next day at school, Yeji kept messaging Kenji but got no reply. She was worried that he might have been hospitalized after the beating. Seeing her so frustrated, her friends realize that she is serious about Kenji. They suggest she goes to his home with his friends. That way it wouldn't be awkward. She calls him a genius for it, but then realizes that she didn't even tell them about Kenji, and asks them how they knew. But it was so obvious that it wouldn't take a genius to figure out what was going on. But when she goes to ask his friends, they deny it. It was because they were busy pushing their rank in an online game. The smart one was on silver, and the dumb one was on bronze. But Yeji trampled on their ego when she told them that she was on the platinum level. This turned on their rage button. She even told them her ID, which was Princess Yeji. They were baffled to see that she wasn't lying. After she couldn't pursue them with her, she was feeling down. But then she sees Songjun and asked him to go with her. He agrees to go with her. She thanked him for doing so, to which Songjun replied that he was going to Kenji's house too. She freaked out as she hadn't even mentioned his name yet. Songjun informed her that everyone knew about it at this point. She started flustering hearing that. A senior sees them together and asks his friend if it is her sister is with Songjun. This guy was the mutual friend that the second uncle was talking about, the leader of the judo club, Lee Du Park. He replied that it was okay if she was with him because he trusted him. On the other hand, Shin Jeong and his friend went to a jewelry shop to sell the ring. They were wearing suits so that they looked adult. But there was no one in the shop and it was empty. Only one bald guy was sitting behind the desk. Shin asked his friend if something was wrong, because he was trembling like crazy. Just then, the bald guy started singing. A few men came running, and they shut down the shutter. Shin screamed at the bald guy for trying to mess with them. We see that this guy was the second uncle. The second uncle accused him of stealing his ring. Shin realized that he was sold out by his friend, who was still trembling. Shin told him the truth about how he found the ring on the road, and he was ready to give it back. But the second uncle didn't want it. It annoyed Shin, and he was ready to fight him thinking he might not be all that strong. But the second uncle punches him in the chest with his knuckle ring. Shin was having a hard time breathing, and he begged him to stop. The second uncle warned him not to ever sell the ring and wear it wherever he goes, because the owner of that ring would find him and collect it from him. He threatened to kill him if he ever sold the ring. Shin agreed to all that, but the second uncle was still not quite satisfied. He points out that he has a lot of hair and orders his men to bring the shaver. Yeji and Songjun arrive at Kenji's place. One of the uncles welcomes them and takes them to the training room. Yeji was surprised to see Kenji's house and realized how rich he was. They meet the second uncle in the training room. She immediately recognizes him from the school. The second uncle remarks that he didn't know Kenji had a girlfriend. Yeji started getting flustered and said she was not his girlfriend, not yet, making others aware that she was into Kenji for real. When Kenji came out of the training room, Yeji was blushing to see him. He was looking way stronger than the last time they met. He asked her why she was there, to which she replied that he wasn't coming to school, that's why. This was their last day of the closed room training. The second uncle asked her to observe them, but she didn't know what she was supposed to observe. Songjun and Kenji were going to toe-to-toe against each other. Songjun compliments him saying he has improved a lot. The second uncle thought to himself how great of a choice it was to let him train with someone his age. Songjun grabbed him by the collar, so Kenji attacked his joint. But before he could do that, Songjun tackled him with just one hand, surprising Kenji that he could do that too. After they were done training, They sat to eat dinner. Yeji asked him why he was not coming to school or replying to their message, to which he replies that he was in closed room training. Songjung explained to her what closed-door training was. Now that his training was over, the second uncle returned his phone. He was about to take a look at what she had sent him. She freaked out and asked him not to read in front of them, to read it when they were gone. Kenji agreed to that. Songjun couldn't help but smile. Yeji confronted him for laughing at her. The uncles were happy to see Kenji having a good time with his friends. They had never seen him like that before. Songjun and Kenji leave after having dinner. They were still fighting each other over every small thing. The second uncle reminded Kenji that he should go to sleep as he was going to school tomorrow. The next morning, Kenji was ready for school. His uncle sewed wires in his collar to make it look cool. Everyone else greets them and makes way for them. When Kenji got outside, he was surprised to see all the cars. The second uncle told him that they were going to accompany him to school. Kenji wondered if he made a mistake by taking the successors training. When they get near the school, the driver stops the car and lets him work to the school on his own. Kenji was super happy that they let him do that. On the way, he saw Shin Jeong standing there and wondered what he was doing there all alone. Shin sees him and tells him to just keep moving, but Kenji smiled and said that he didn't want to. Shin was all alone and this was his chance to get back at him. Shin was already annoyed while waiting for someone, and now Kenji was pissing him off even more. Kenji asked him to show his right hand because there was something that he was looking for. We see that Kenji's hands are looking kinda chiseled from all the training that he has been doing for the past week. While Shin was getting angrier, Kenji suddenly came closer to him, startling him. He used his technique called pickaxe and dug his fingers into his shoulder. Shin screamed in pain and was baffled at what he was doing. He kicked him off of him and threatened to beat the crap out of him. Just then, he saw something shining in the dark. It was the second uncle, who signaled to him that he was going to die. At first, Shin didn't understand why he was there. Then after thinking about it for a minute, things started to make sense to him. The guy who threw a rock at him was none other than Kenji, and the owner of the ring was also him. Meaning, all of the humiliation that he was getting was because of Kenji. He couldn't control his anger after deducing it. He screamed his lungs out and charged at him while screaming he was going to kill him. But Kenji caught his punch. He remembered what the second uncle had instructed him, how he should use his unbelievably strong grip strength, because once the opponent is caught, he'd feel hell. Kenji crushed his fist like a potato. Shin didn't understand what was going on. He wondered if he was the same loser Kenji that he knew. But even if his grip was strong, there were still limitations to what he could do, and Shin knew this. He started punching him, and all Kenji did was block it, even though it hurt. But this was nothing compared to Songjong's punches. Just then, Shin looked at the second uncle and remembered what he had instructed him. While trimming his hair, he had ordered him to get beaten by the owner of the ring and let him take the ring away, but make it look natural. Shin blamed his friend for selling him out, but the second uncle informed him that he tried to cover for him, and the result was him getting his hair trimmed down as well. Not only, but he also lost his eyebrows when he tried to run away and got caught. Kenji asked him if he was going overboard as they were just students, but the second uncle didn't care if they were just students and threatened to hunt him down if he tried anything funny. Shin Jeong-cheol swallowed his pride and accepted every condition. Now in the present time, Shin couldn't believe he was going to get beaten by a loser like him. His pride won't allow this to happen, but he knows he's dead if he hits Kenji even once. He stopped his punch midway and brought his face forward to let him hit. Kenji punched him hard, to the point his nose started bleeding. But Kenji didn't understand why he did that and asked him while giving him a hand. Shin wondered why he was being friendly all of a sudden. But he wasn't being friendly. He just wanted the ring. He used his pickaxe technique on him again and took away the ring from him. He couldn't believe he finally did it. His uncles came out of the shadows to congratulate him. Kenji asked them what they were doing there, to which they replied that they just got there. Shin didn't understand what was going on, why he was calling them uncle and they were calling him young master. After all of this, the second uncle asked him to get in the car again. He told them that he was almost at the school, but they insisted that they had to drop him off in front of the gate. Kenji had thought he avoided it, but it was inevitable. Kenji's friend and the other students in the school were wondering why there were so many black cars in front of their school. His friend imagined they were some kind of gangster. Even the teachers were wondering who it was, But the head teacher already knew what was coming next. It was hella embarrassing for Kenji, but he didn't care at this point and just wanted to get this over with. All the gangsters get out of their cars and line up in front of the car to welcome their young master. Yeji also sees this and wonders if this is what she thinks it is. His friends also recognize one of the uncles from Kenji's house. Kenji got out of the car. All the gangsters bow before him and wish him a good day at the school. It was an emotional moment for the uncles because after 17 long years, they were finally able to drop him off at school. The friends of Yeji started interrogating her if she knew about it. And that's why she liked him, because being bullied was no longer sufficient for him, so she wanted to be a gangster. But Yeji was baffled and dumbfounded as well. The dumb friend asks the other friend if he knows that Kenji is the young master of those gangsters, but it was his first time seeing that too. Even his best friend had no idea. Kenji meets with Songjung on the way, who points out his flashy entrance. Kenji told him how embarrassed he was feeling. Songjung also commented on his weird work and asked him to do it properly. He was persistent in doing it. Lee Yiji's friend asks her not to just stand there dozing off and to get and hit on her. She calls for them and proposes to work together with them. Kenji's friends were also surprised to see him being this close to those two. The demo guy asks if he really didn't know. He didn't know because he hadn't been friends with him for that long. But the smarter, Jongyun, had been friends with him for 10 years now. It was weird that even he didn't know. Jongyun was disappointed but still tried to convince him that he must have his reasons. The English teacher was asking the head teacher to do something about it. But seeing the second uncle, he couldn't even move, because just that one guy was equivalent to 17 people. This wasn't something he could handle on his own. They needed to organize an emergency meeting. In the teachers' meeting, they were all against Kenji, but the principal didn't want them to say stuff like that to a guy like him. But even though the principal adored him, the fact that he was from a gangster family can't be ignored. The principal assured them that he would talk to him personally, but the head teacher remarked that it wasn't enough to just talk to him. He suggested they transfer him to a different school ASAP. The current student council president was also surprised to hear that. His assistant asked him how he managed to hide it from them all this time, to which he replied that he wasn't hiding it. He was genuinely kind to others, although he didn't have any ill intentions toward Kenji. But he couldn't let him be the next student council president. Their school was a role model to other schools, and their school would be ridiculed if the words got out. When Kenji entered the class, everyone started looking at him. Sengu screamed at him, saying how he knew that he was a devilish person. The rest of the class also started murmuring about him, saying how he was a con artist. He was just acting kind to fool everyone and hide that he was a gangster. One of the girls asked Sujin if she knew about it, but she also had no idea. Seeing them talk like that about him was just too much for him. He remembered the time when they were all used to being friendly with him, but now they were talking behind his back and were terrified of him. Songjung and Yeji asked him if he is okay and why he wasn't getting in class. Kenji started panicking and was about to throw up, so he ran towards the washroom with tears in his eyes. He remembered what the first uncle had told him, but he took that lightly. But the worst was yet to come. On the way, he met his friends and greeted them, thinking at least they'd understand him, but the look in their eyes said it all. They were terrified of him and walked past him without saying anything. This was what hurt him the most. He couldn't stop his tears any longer. He asked them why they were acting like that while crying in pain. He asked them to wait up and hear him out. Jongyun stops and in anger says how he didn't believe him when he said he wanted to become a bad guy like Shin Jeongchil. But this is how he was from the start. He was the son of a gangster. With a shocked expression, Kenji said that he was about to tell him when the other friend interrupted him. He said how he should have never gotten involved with him and that he trusted him. Even though his uncles looked sketchy, they convinced themselves thinking that they just looked like that, but they were really gangsters. Kenji tries to explain, but he asks him to just answer if he was a gangster or not. Kenji had no choice but to agree with him. Jongyun said to him that he should have at least told him about this. Kenji remembered the time 3 years ago, when Jongyun saw some gangsters getting arrested. He expressed his hate towards them. His dream was to become a police officer and catch them all. The hate towards them had something to do with his past. That's the reason why he didn't tell him about his being a gangster, the thing he hated the most. Kenji tries to explain, saying he was looking for the right opportunity to tell him, but he points out how was it possible that he didn't get the chance to tell him for 10 years. He goes as far as to ask Kenji if he even considered him as his friend. Kenji was speechless and baffled. Just then, Songjung and Yeji came there and asked them what was going on. Jongyun told him to go with their new friends, the bully, Lee Yeji, and the top fighter Songjung, and that losers like them weren't qualified to be his friends. Songjun and Yeji didn't understand what that was about, but Kenji was completely devastated and fell on his knees. The story continues with Songjung and Yeji being shocked seeing him in that state. They take him outside to catch a breath. Yeji asked him if he didn't know this was going to happen, and that he should have been ready for it. Songjun gets annoyed at her for being so insensitive, but she wasn't wrong. Kenji asked Yeji if she felt better after smoking. They both were baffled and simultaneously shouted no. He asked them why couldn't do it. He was a gangster after all. Yeji had nothing to say to that. Kenji had decided that if everyone was scared of him just because he was the son of a gangster, he was going to fully embrace it and act like a gangster. Songjung advised him that he'd gain nothing from smoking cigarettes. Kenji pointed out how unfair it was that they started to treat him like that just because he was the son gangster. They made it seem like he harmed them, even though all he ever did was to be kind to them. He felt betrayed that they just turned on him just like that. Songjung explained to him how he would have reacted the same way if you suddenly started seeing gangsters crowd in an area. Yeji suggested he give up if it was this hard for him, but after coming this far, he couldn't back down now. Kenji gets a call and leaves to meet the person on the call. He was looking angry, making Yeji wonder if he was okay. The guy who called him was the student council president. He asked him about him being a gangster. Kenji didn't expect him to say stuff like that too, and asked him if it was really that important. It was important because this might ruin the school's reputation. He was also disappointed that a kind-hearted guy like him was from a gangster family. He was about to talk to the teacher after talking to Kenji, but he was now sure that Kenji wasn't planning on changing. The student president says that it wasn't real him, which finally pisses him off. He remarks how he lived as kindly as he could for 10 years, and people treated him so differently just because of something that happened that morning. He couldn't just look past that. While leaving, Kenji told him that he didn't give a crap about being the student council president. The president said that if he was planning to take over his family business, then there was no need for him to come to the school anymore. He'd only ruin the school's atmosphere. Kenji replied that he was going to do as he pleased and left after that. The president thinks to himself that Kenji was indeed a kind guy. He was just angry because everyone was treating him that way. Because of him, the balance of power in their school had been destroyed. A big storm was coming, and Kenji could be their asset to deal with all the scum of the school. This was what was going on in the president's mind. On the other hand, their other uncles were still teaching Shin Jeong a lesson. They ordered him to drop out of the school if wanted to live, and that he should have picked a fight with someone his size. After they were gone, Shin thinks to himself that he just couldn't let Kenji trample all over him. His ego wouldn't allow it even if they killed him afterward. He was going to exact his revenge on Kenji. He pounds his head over to find any weakness of Kenji, anything that gave him an upper hand over him. Just then he remembered that Sujin and Henji were childhood friends and called her. He knew that Sujin was still high over heels for him, and all he'd need to was comfort her and get their info from her. Sujin got the call and lied to her friends saying she was going to the toilet. Shin was ready to die, but he wasn't going down without taking Kenji down with him. Yeji and Songjung wondered if Kenji quarreled with his friends too. She originally thought she knew their kind very well, but they were being too hard on him, said Yeji. Her friends come there to ask her about Kenji, so Songjong takes his leave. Outside, he sees Kenji's friend Jongyun. He goes to sit by him and talk to him. Jongyun was getting anxious being next to him. Songjung told Jongyun how Kenji was also having a hard time. Not only him, but the whole school turned their backs on him. Jongyong understands that, but he still can't accept that he hid that part of his life from him. He felt like he was being deceived all this time. Songjung says that he must have his reasons for not telling him. He told Jongyun that he did live kindly to people. That's why even though they knew he was the son of a gangster, they were still pointing their fingers at him. They weren't really scared of him, because they knew he wouldn't hurt them. While Songjung was leaving, Jongyun pointed out that he wasn't scared of them because he was good at fighting, unlike losers like him. Songjung informed him that he was also scared, but not by Kenji but by his uncles, and remarked that Jongyun should know better than anyone that Kenji had a good heart. Jongyun realized he was short-sighted and misunderstood him. He acted too emotionally and regretted saying all those nasty things to him. He decided to find Kenji, apologize to him, and clear up all the misunderstandings. When he got to the class, his desk, which was beside Kenji's before, was removed by his friends. They didn't want anything to do with him, but Jongyun told them that he misunderstood him and that was doing it to apologize to him. The two freak out over his decision and ask him why he was the one to apologize when Kenji lied to him for 10 years. He moved his desk back where it was. They warn him that he might get into trouble and wash off their hands with him too. Some seniors come in their class, and one of them hits Jongyun for blocking the way. They asked the class where Kenji was, but no one answered them. They were scared to even speak. They noticed that even Shin Jeong and Yeji were not there. They leave after insulting the class for being full of losers. Their way got blocked by another student. They were about to cuss him, but they made that cussing into a song when they saw it was Songjong. Songjung was surprised when he saw that they didn't do anything in the class. Outside of the school, Shin Jeong's friends were afraid of being followed by the gangsters. Their other friend suggests they should go to the police as they were just minors. But something tells them that if they report to the police, something terrible will happen to them. They looked for Shin Jian and wondered where he was at a time like this. He was busy luring Sujin into his trap. He called her and asked her to see him. When she saw his face, she asked who did this to him. He asked her if she knew about Kenji being the young master of a gangster family, to which she replied that she had no idea. He says to himself what a stupid B-word she was. He started to act emotional, telling her how Kenji brought more than 10 of his uncles and beat him up suddenly, and there was nothing he could do. He didn't think it would work. She'd never take his side over her childhood friend whom she had known for so long. But much to his surprise, she was so dumb and high over heels for him that she immediately believed him. She says how she was disappointed in him for doing such a cowardly thing. Shin was surprised that she believed him and thought how dumb she was. He asked her if she knows any of his secrets so that he can get back at him. She tells him that she has no idea about that. Shin started to push her, saying she had to know something as they were childhood friends. Shin started to get impatient and asked her to give him something like his secret or something he treasured. After thinking about it for a moment, she realized that if they included the people around him, then the person he treasured would be her. Shin had finally an upper hand on Kenji. While people knew that Kenji liked her, she just thought of herself as someone that Kenji treasured. He convinced her to go to his house with him, saying he had forgotten something. She agreed to go with him. On the way, she asked him if they were dating again. He assured her that they were and apologized to her for treating her that way, and promises to treat her better this time if she gives him another chance. She immediately forgets what he did to her and forgives him. After that, Shin Jeong hangs out with her and acts all lovey-dovey with her. She even skips school for the first time to hang out with him. Meanwhile, Shin thinks she was retarded and she was the biggest bait for him to catch Kenji with. In the school, Yeji's friends were interrogating her, asking if she was dating Kenji and if she was dating him because he was a gangster. Yeji yells at them and tells them she likes him, but not because he is a gangster. They suggest she should make Kenji the strongest, and to do that, she could ask his brother for help. He could get him closer to other bullies. Yeji didn't find the thought of him being strong all that bad. In fact, she was totally into it. Just then, the shorty and big head come there asking them about Kenji. The girls make fun of them for trying to get closer to Kenji after hearing he was a gangster. Yeji thought it might be better to introduce these guys to Kenji before introducing him to his brother's friends, since they were more dangerous. But she wasn't sure if she was doing the right thing there. They ask if she knows where Shin Jeong is and why he isn't coming to school. After Yeji scolds them for asking her about him, they start leaving. When they turn around, they encounter Kenji. The girls told him that he was the one they were looking for. The big head asks if he is the loser who used to get bullied. They didn't believe the girls at first, but they still tried to get along with him. Kenji angrily asks them if they are friends with Shin Jeong. They think he is also friends with Shin and start acting friendly with him. The guy brings his hand forward to handshake him. Kenji agreed to handshake him but started crushing his hand with his monstrous grip. His friend thought he was overreacting, but he informed him he was not and asked him to do something about it. Big Head, who was way stronger than Shorty, attacked him, but Kenji dodged his punch and caught it. And then he goes on to use the technique of potato twister on him. Kenji informed him that he'd lose his arm if he twisted it even a little more. The guy immediately gives up and begs him to let go of him. He doesn't break his arm and lets him go. The two immediately run from him as soon as he leaves them. Yeji and her friends were impressed by his charisma. Kenji asked Yuji to do him a favor. Since she was also a bully, he asked her to send a message to all the bullies in the school. He was going to beat all of them up except her. On the other hand, Shin and Sujin are hanging out when Sujin asked him if she should ask Kenji directly to stop bullying him, but Shin didn't even give it a thought and denied it. Just then, he sees a big head and shorts running to him. They asked him what happened to his face. As Sujin was about to answer that, Shin ordered her to go to the class. While leaving, Sujin admires how cool Shin looked in front of his friends. They told him that it was Kenji who did that to them. At first, Shin thought he asked his uncles for help, but he was surprised to know that not only Shorty but Big Head lost to him too. When they asked about him, he told them that Kenji called tens of his uncles to beat him up. This got the two of them trembling in their shoes. They suggest they shouldn't mess around with him, but Shin proposes a different plan. A plan to screw him up using his connection like Kenji was using his connection to mess with them. He told them that he was going to ask Do Park to help him out because he had connections with gangsters. He informed them how Do Park didn't care about his opponents. He even got into a fight and beat the crap out of a gangster. The two were also on board hearing Do Park's name. Shin ordered them to gather as many students as possible, large enough to take on even those gangsters. They were going all in this time, and Shin wasn't playing around. Yeri ordered chocolate milk. Kenji asked her if she liked those as well, but she says those were for him, to which he replied that he hated it. He was only having those because Sujin liked them, but he didn't tell her that. She informed him about the school bullies' alliance with their other schools. The top dog of their high school was third-year Do Park, who was also Yeji's brother. The top fighter was Songjin Seok, who was in the same club as Do Park, but as his junior, and they both are close to each other. Since Songjin Seok wasn't a bully, their other bully would stick to Do Park. Shin and Do Park went to the same middle school, so they were close to each other. In fact, the reason Shin became a leader was because of her older brother, not because he was good at fighting. She further goes on to tell him how their alliance had about 100 of members, but Kenji told her that he was only concerned with their school at the moment. He was determined to beat them all to become the baddest person of all. The student council president asks Do Park if he already knew about Kenji being the son of a gangster. Do Park had already told him to keep an eye on Kenji, saying he was the son of the firebag gangster. But seeing Kenji, he didn't believe him at the time. He reminded him how their other schools were always fighting, but their school never got into trouble. The president thought it was because he was the president, but Do Park burst his bubbles, informing him it was because of Kenji that no one dared to mess with their school. On the other hand, Shorty and Big Head were gathering all of the guns of their school. Meanwhile, Shin goes to talk to Do Park about the situation. When Do Park saw the bruise on his face, he was furious and asked him who did that. Shin told him the whole story about what happened and how Songjun was also helping Kenji besides the gangsters. Shin asked for his help in getting back at Kenji. Do Park told him that his biggest problem was Songjun. Do Park assured that he would cover for him on the gangsters' end, and that he should just focus on getting rid of Songjong. Shin started flattering him, saying how great he was and how he unified all the schools in their area. But Shin pointed out how he and Songjung were in the same judo club, to which Do Park replies that he was more important to him than Songjung since he was with him since middle school. Do Park made a plan to take care of Songjung for Shin. He told Shin to challenge him in one-on-one fight and take him to the gymnasium. But Shin was nowhere near strong enough to take down Songjung. Do Park knew this, even though he wasn't confident that he could take Songjing on in one-on-one fight. That's why they planned an ambush. No matter how strong Songjing was, even he wouldn't be able to survive an ambush. Do Park told him to gather as many friends as he could, because he was going to ambush him the next day. Shin couldn't help but laugh at how he was going to kill Songjun finally. All of Shin's friends were gathered in one place, and they were getting impatient because Shin was late. He entered the room and gave them the good news they wanted to hear for a long time. All of them had piled up anger and frustration towards Songjong. After listening that he was planning to beat up Songjong, the others think he had gone crazy. They were also scared of Songjong, but when Shin told them that Do Park was also helping them, they start to believe that it was not impossible. They wanted to beat him for a long time, but no one dared to touch him. But now they had a chance to get back at him. While walking in the school hallway, Yeji was worried that Kenji might fight his brother too, as he was determined to get rid of all the bullies. Just then, they see Jongyun waiting for them. Kenji was surprised to see him. Yeji heads out ahead to let them talk it out. They awkwardly work together, and SAT on the bench outside. Jongyun told him how he was disappointed in him. Kenji apologizes to him again for being a gangster, but Jongyun wasn't upset about the fact that he was a gangster, but the fact that he hid it from him for 10 years. He felt betrayed and thought he was the only one who considered him his best friend. Kenji asked him why he couldn't tell him for all these years. Seeing how much he hated gangsters, Kenji was afraid of losing his best friend if he told him the truth about him being a gangster. Jongyun was relieved to hear that because he thought Kenji had changed. Kenji pointed out Jongyun smiling, meaning they were all right now. They start hitting each other like kids. Songjung was watching it all from the class. He was happy for Kenji and went back to sleep again. During the class, the dumb friend was surprised to see Jongyun and Kenji together. The guy was angry at Kenji and tried to convince the dumb friend saying Kenji was trash, and so was Jongyun. But the dumb friend wanted to be friends with them again. After school, Kenji invited Jongyun to his house to introduce him to his uncles. Jongyun was ready to meet his gangster uncles. Songjung and Yeji also tag along, while Sujin was not very happy to see them hanging out together. The dumb friend also asked them if he could tag along as well, and Kenji agreed immediately. When they all arrive at Kenji's house, the first uncle greets them. The first uncle was happy to see him with that many friends, but he told him that he'd have to delay this gathering for later, as he was going to receive special training from now on. He wouldn't be able to go to school as well. Songjung and the others wished him luck and left. Kenji pointed out their injury on his first uncle's face and asked him who was capable of doing that. He informed him that there were few people in Korea capable of that. After they leave, we see Shin's sidekicks hiding. They were following them and got the news of Kenji not coming to school. This would mean that the gangsters would also not come to the school, meaning they could take down Songjung with much ease now. But for now, they just follow Songjung to find out where he lives. The next day, Songjung was surprised at how quiet the school was just because Kenji didn't come that day. He set up his desk and started sleeping right after coming into the class. Meanwhile, Shin got the report from his sidekicks. They had already gathered everyone to the gym. Now all they needed was to make Songjung come to the gym. He went to Songjung's class and started working toward him. Yeji and her friends were wondering why he walking up to sleeping Songjung. Just then, Shin raised his hands and slapped Songjung as hard as he could. This shocked everyone in the class. Songjung woke up angry. Shin started running, seeing him awake, while yelling at him to come to the gym. Otherwise, he'd think Songjung got scared and run away. Songjung was confused at what just happened. Shin was just one step away from beating him up. He was planning to lure him to the gym and humiliate him in front of everyone. Dupark had assured him that he would be waiting for them in the gym with the Super Alliance, and they would get rid of Songjung once and for all. And after that, Kenji would be an easy target without Songjung. Shin entered the gym and saw that his friends were already there. Not only them, but the Super Alliance executives were also there. Dupark winks at him, indicating he had got his back. Not everything was in position. All they needed to do now was to wait for Songjung. One of their executives expresses his disappointment because Dupark had promised them that the Fire Bear Gang's young master would be there, to which Dupark replies that it was normal for the main character to arrive in their end. The other executives were wondering if the hierarchy of the Duran High was going to change today. In the classroom, we see Songjung get up in anger. Yeji suggested he should just ignore Shin, but Songjung replied that he didn't feel like it and left the class. He arrived at the gym. When he entered the gym, he found Shin standing in front of him, who said to him that he was going to die that day. Dupark informed the Super Alliance that the guy was Songjung he was talking about, and how it was a pity that he wasn't interested in joining their alliance. They was shocked to see his size. Shin's friends were also scared to see him. Shin, with a menacing smile on his face, orders his lackeys to screw him up, but no one dared to move even an inch. Shin was confused and asked them what was going on and where were his other two friends. He started sweating and didn't know what was going on when Songjung started to move closer to him. Shin started freaking out and told him to stay back, but Song attacked him and punched him so hard that he got thrown away by his friends. The Super Alliance executives were stunned to see his power and wondered if he was just a high schooler. They were impressed by him. Meanwhile, Shin shouts that his nose is broken. He asked his guys why they were just standing there not doing anything, but no one said anything. Shin asked Dupark for help and asked him to give them a signal to move. Dupark just sits there while smiling and signals the guys to come out. The door opens. Shin turns back to find out that the one who came out of the door was none other than Kenji. The story continues. Seeing Kenji come out of the room, everyone was surprised, but no one was more surprised than Shin. He started panicking while asking everyone why Kenji was there, And where were his two lackeys? He asks Dupark what was going on. Kenji asks him if he is scared of fighting him. Shin smiles at him, saying he is nothing more than a coward who brought his gangster uncles to ambush him. To which Kenji replies that he was doing the same thing to Songjung, trying to ambush him. Kenji challenges him to fight him one-on-one. Shin attacks him while yelling he is just a loser, nothing more. But Kenji easily avoids his attack and uses his technique pickaxe. Shin had to back down after getting hit by his attack, because the pain was unbearable. But Shin couldn't stand how Kenji was so carefree while fighting him. He attacked Kenji with his dominant hand this time, which was his left hand. But this time as well, Kenji dodges his punch without much effort and calls him slow. Kenji grabs his hand and uses his monstrous grip strength while Shin tries his best to get out of his hold. Kenji uses another technique, laundry squeeze, and elbows him. Shin screams in pain and Songjung compliments Kenji's techniques. The seniors were also impressed by his fighting style. Shin starts making excuses, saying he was already injured from fighting Songjung earlier, so it'd be impossible for him to fight again. Kenji says he was full of words. Seeing Kenji looking down on him, Shin decides to take out the knife he was planning to use on Songjung, but now he had no choice but to use it on Kenji. Kenji says that using a knife was going too far, but seeing Kenji getting scared, Shin charged toward Kenji. But before he could hit him, the second uncle announced on the mic that using a knife in a one-on-one fight was prohibited. Shin was shocked to see the second uncle there, and wondered what he was doing there. His two lackeys were also there, sitting there with their heads shaved. The second uncle orders him to throw the knife and start fighting again. Shin tells the second uncle the same thing, how he was already injured, and that it wasn't a fair fight. Then he sees the two guys sitting beside the second uncle. At first, he wonders who are those ugly guys, but then he realizes they are his lackeys. He remembers how the second uncle had warned him not to use any tricks. Kenji asks Songjung to hit him just like he did Shin so that they'd be on the same level. That way, Shin wouldn't have any more excuses to not fight him. Songjung is hesitant at first, but when Kenji insists, he hits him with a solid punch to the face. The second uncle and the others were baffled to see that. Seeing his modness, Shin felt shivers down his spine. The seniors concluded that he was much more suited to become the boss of the school. When Shin doesn't attack him, Kenji charges instead. Shin thought he just needed to keep his distance from him, but much to his surprise, Kenji jumped onto him, not giving him any chance to escape. The second uncle was also surprised because he didn't teach him any ground technique, even though Kenji managed to grab him, but he didn't know what to do next, so he just started to squeeze his wrist. The others were slightly disappointed in him, but they didn't understand why Shin was acting like he was being strangled. Kenji remembers all the devious things Shin had done to him, and how because of him, Sujin left him as she was into bad boys now. Shin screams in pain and tells him that gives up, but it was too late not. Kenji couldn't stop himself now. He starts punching him again and again, asking him how it feels to be powerless. But instead of begging him, Shin calls him a loser who would be worthless without the backing of the gangsters. The whole gym echoes with the sound of his punches. He was hitting him for all the people Shin bullied, and they couldn't do anything about it. Songjung stops Kenji as Shin is already out of consciousness. Kenji couldn't contain his anger and screamed out loud while crying. The seniors make fun of him for crying even though he was the one hitting. Shin's friends realize that they were no match for him. They start arguing about who should be the new boss of the school after Shin. While they were arguing with each other, Kenji informed them that it was pointless for them to fight among themselves as he was going to beat all of them from now on anyway. They told him that he was being full of himself just after winning one fight. But one of the Super Alliance executives intervenes and introduces himself to him. But Kenji disrespects him, saying he didn't like those guys. The executives were getting angry. Kenji goes on to say that he was going to beat the Super Alliance as well. Outside the gym, the first and the third uncle were waiting. The third uncle asked him about his injury as well. The first uncle told him how the other factions in the gang had started to make their move. They have gotten the wind of Kenji's existence. They'd have to let the public know of his existence as well if they wanted to survive at this point. Inside the gym, the Super Alliance executive warns him that he won't be able to walk out alive after saying such a thing about the Alliance. But Kenji didn't care about anything. The guy challenges Kenji to a fight, and Kenji immediately agrees to it. The second uncle signals Dupark, and he stops them from fighting. Dupark told them that Kenji was high on adrenaline. Everything he says would sound aggressive at this point in time. The guy agrees to leave for now after Dupark insists. The other seniors didn't like his rude behavior towards the Alliance as well, but they didn't cause any more drama and left. The guys from their high school couldn't accept Kenji as their new boss and retaliated. Dupark told them if they didn't like it, they'd have to face Songjung and himself. Even though they were furious, None of them dared to move forward and left in anger. They were frustrated after the one they thought of as a loser humiliated them and now would be their boss. But one of the guys named Kim Yong told them the one who got humiliated the most was Shin. They'd have to just wait for the moment, and their time would definitely come. After everyone leaves, Songjung asks Kenji if he is feeling all right. I thought I'd feel good after beating Shin Jeong up with my own hands. I thought I'd feel relieved, said Kenji. But it was way different from what he had imagined. When he was beating up someone who wasn't able to defend himself, he felt like a bad person. Songju reminded him that he wasn't just someone. It was Shin, and he deserved it. And isn't that what you wanted? To become a bad person, said Songjong. Songjong advised him to decide in which direction he wanted to go. In the gym, the second uncle was taking Do Park to the first uncle to introduce him to the first uncle. But before going, he takes out his trimmer to shave Shin's remaining hair. While Do Park was wondering how he was gonna save his hair when it was already shaved. In a few moments, the second uncle was done and left after that. We see Shin lying on the ground with all the hairs on his body being shaved. After they were gone, Shin's friends ran to him to wake him up. When he wakes up, he finds his clothes and wonders why his body is so smooth. When he realized what they had done to him, he screamed his heart out. He was the only one kept in the dark. They were all in on it together. The friends that he trusted, Park Do, someone whom he trusted and followed around as if he was his real brother, the Super Alliance as well. They all planned and made him the prey. He starts laughing like a maniac. His friends were wondering if he had gone insane. It worked out great, he says, because now he knew who the people he needed to get rid of. He ordered his lackeys to get to work as he was going to take his revenge on everybody. He is the type of person where if he dies, doesn't go down alone. At this point, Shin was the most dangerous because he had nothing to lose anymore, and he was going to make them realize what it's like to lose everything. The Super Alliance executives were wondering whose side they should pick, because Kenji had declared war on the Super Alliance, and Do Park was also backing him up. The news of Kenji beating Shin spread like wildfire, but his declaring war on the Super Alliance spread even quicker. The news also spread throughout the Firebag gang. The uncles threw a party to celebrate this victory and introduced Do Park to the rest of the family. In the school, some students were afraid to go near Kenji, and some who couldn't accept Kenji as the new boss of the school were starting to gather. But they all hated Kenji unanimously. Kenji was sitting on a bench thinking he had become pretty bad, so Sujin should like him now. He was going to confess his feelings to her. He called her but she didn't pick up the phone. She always picked up her phone before, so he worried that something was wrong. He wanted to tell her how bad he had become as soon as possible. He'd slowly started to go out of the school during school hours. The real man's work no longer felt awkward as well. He was getting used to spitting. He was doing everything a gangster should do. When he got home, he was surprised to see the home empty. When he goes to look for them, his father welcomes him. Kenji was stunned to see his father again so soon. His father hugs him and lets him know how proud of him he is. He starts crying while telling him how he has waited his entire life for this moment. It was the first time in 10 years his father was hugging him. Kenji was relieved to be in that moment no matter what he felt about the whole situation. The party starts and his father offers him the drink he had prepared for him himself. They were very excited for this moment, but Kenji told them that the drink was disgusting. His father was really disappointed in him. To make him happy, Kenji tried to force himself to drink, but his father told him that he had already done enough. The boss goes outside to take a breather. The second uncle goes with him. The boss thanks the first uncle for taking care of his son. Just then, the fire gang's right-hand man Lee Saiwon comes there looking for the boss. The boss told him that he was staying and went inside. Saiwon mucks the first uncle, asking him if he has already recovered from the slap. He further mucks him, saying he was just a babysitter. But the first uncle just stares at him and doesn't say a thing. He went inside, which makes Saiwon even more annoyed. The boss knew something was going on between the two of them and ordered the second uncle to make up with Saiwon. The boss asked him to send Kenji to the rooftop alone. When Kenji came to the rooftop, the boss expressed his concern that he might go back to being kind again, so he needed to make sure that didn't happen. Kenji was shocked to see all of his award certificates. The father ordered him to burn all of them. Kenji was baffled to hear that. Kenji knew that this was his past and he needed to leave it behind. But even then, these were evidence of the kind acts he performed for the last 10 years. But he burns all of them down and puts his past behind him. His father was proud of him and was extremely happy. After his father was gone, Kenji mustered up the courage to call Sujin again to tell her how he was not the same person now. But before he could call her, she called her instead. Kenji started to panic and didn't know what to do. But then he realized the one who was calling him was not Sujin but Yeji. He thought if she was calling this late at night, It must be something urgent. But Yeji just wanted to have a casual conversation with him. As Kenji was about to hang up the phone, she said she had something urgent to tell him. She was coming over to his house, but Kenji asked her to meet at the park nearby. But Yeji wasn't gonna listen to him. She was already on her way. Kenji tries to sneak out of the house, but the second uncle catches him. He asks him if he's going to meet a girl. When Kenji says yes, the other uncles also wake up and start asking him all sorts of questions. So Kenji just runs away without taking any of them with him. When he got outside, he found Yeji was already waiting for him outside to pick him up. But Kenji scolds her thinking she stole someone else's motorbike and didn't even have a driving license, but assured him that it was her bike and offered him a ride to the park. But Kenji proposes they should just work to the park. Yeji was slightly disappointed. They arrive at the park where Yeji reminded him how it was the same park where they first met, how he threw a stone at her that day. They remember what had happened that day and laugh together. Kenji puts his hands on her forehead to see if the stone leaves any scar, but Yeji got flustered and started blushing. She got up without saying anything and started her motorbike as soon as possible. Kenji apologizes to her for anything he might have done that offended her and asked her not to leave, but she didn't listen to him. If she had not left when she did, Kenji might have heard her heart beating so fast. On the other hand, Shin had started to gather students for his revenge, but Shorty and Big Head call him crazy for going before them again and leave. But some students couldn't accept the humiliation and wanted to do something about it. They had a total of 6 people now, but the others weren't confident that they could take on Songjun even though there were 6 of them. So they asked Shin if had any plans in mind. Shin points out how they had more weaknesses and how they had much more to lose. We see Songjun and his little sister enjoying her food and playing. The next day at school, Kenji was worried because Yeji wasn't picking up his phone, and the same was with Sujin. He encountered the student council president on the way. The president takes him with him to tell him something important. He tells Kenji how the chief teacher wanted him gone, and how he was proposing to the principal to transfer him. Kenji was confused because he didn't even do anything for that to happen. But the reason was pretty. Him being the son of a gangster was enough. But the president understands that it wasn't his fault that he was born into a gangster family. On the contrary, he admires him for turning out the way he did even though his surroundings made it difficult for him. That's why he advised Kenji to be the face of the school violence eradication campaign. That way he could beat the bullies without getting in trouble with teachers. Kenji had no reason to decline the proposal, so he goes along with it. They both go to meet the chief teacher in the teacher's office. The student council president told the chief teacher how he could get rid of all the bullies with the help of Kenji if he let him be the front of the school violence committee. The teacher found this to be an absurd idea. But Kenji asked him to trust him because he'd never done anything wrong, and if didn't believe him, he should call a parent-teacher meeting. Everyone in the office was surprised to hear it. The chief teacher was out of the spot and couldn't dismiss them without a good reason. He told them he'd think about it. In the class, Kenji was wondering if he'd be considered a kind person for beating the bullies, or if he'd become an even worse person. Sujin was not in the class as well, which made him even more anxious, thinking she was in some kind of trouble. After school, Kenji and Songjun went together, and Shin and his lackeys followed them. After a while, they realized that they were not heading towards Kenji's house, meaning they were headed towards Songjun's house. Shin was thrilled after realizing that. They arrived at Songjun's house where her sister was waiting for him. Kenji was surprised to see her calling Songjun her big brother. The sister revealed how he asked her big brother to keep it a secret from him, and she was also the one who asked Songjun to help Kenji as Kenji had saved her once from some bullies. That's why Songjun was more involved in his matter. They both thanked Kenji for helping her and compliment him. After they explained everything to him, they left for the gym to train. Meanwhile, Shin was watching from the shadows. His eyes were on his sister. "Laugh while you can," he says, because he'd be looking forward to what their expression would be like when they lose what's precious to them. While going to the gym, Songjun explains how coming home after doing lower body exercises to the point where he can't even move gives him a thrill. After Songjun was gone for training, Kenji couldn't resist but started to worry about Sujin again. He tried to call her again, but this time as well she didn't pick up. He didn't know if he should report this to the police or search for himself. When he got home, Kenji asked his second uncle for help. The second asked him if she had a boyfriend. They told him that both of them must be doing that. That's why they weren't picking up. Kenji couldn't hear them talking about both of them like that and ran away from them. Even though he was terrified of confronting what he might find them doing at her house, he still decided to go look for her at her house. But even at her house, there was no one. He wondered if she went to her father's place, but he was confident she would never do that, not without telling him. Yeri was feeling down, seeing her like that. Her friend asked her what happened with Kenji and her. "I don't think Kenji is interested in me," said Yeri, because he wasn't playing hard to get around her. While they were planning their next move, Kenji called her. Surprised, she picks up the phone. Kenji starts by saying he has something to tell her. She was flattered and asked him what he wanted to say, but he was just calling her to borrow her bike. He told her how he was going to search for Sujin. Yeri reminds him that she has a boyfriend and that he should look for her, not him. Kenji listened to her advice and hung up the call. Yeri was really annoyed. Even though Kenji listened to her, he still couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. On the way home, he meets with Daeun, Songjun's sister again. She bought him ice cream from her allowance. We see Shijil, who was happy to find Kenji there too, creeping on them. He was going to beat Kenji and Daeun after kidnapping her, but not everyone was on board with this plan. They were happy to beat Kenji, but beating a kid was going too far even for them. But one of the guys agrees with Shin and calls them weak for backing down. He reminds them that the reason they were playing this dirty was because they couldn't get their hands on Songjun. But those guys would rather be called than beat up a child. Shin was getting frustrated and wished that Songjun gets crippled somehow so that they could just directly ambush him, and his prayers were heard. Songjun was coming back from the gym after doing some extensive lower body exercises, to the point that he started limping and couldn't even work properly. This was their 1 in a million chance. It was like God was on their side. Everyone was on board with this. They pick up their bats and march ahead, while Kenji and Daeun are playing in a park. Songjun started climbing the stairs and he was enjoying the thrill when Shin attacked him from behind. He managed to block the first attack, but realized he had no strength in his leg, so he couldn't dodge the second one. The rest of them attacked him as well and brought him to his knees. Songjun counted there were 6 of them, but he was still confident that he could take them on. He started throwing hands and starts taking them down one by one. He could see their moves files away. He blocked one of the guy's attacks and asked him if they had done anything to Daeun. But the guy didn't know if he was talking about a person or a detergent powder. Songjun deduces that she is safe and is relieved for a moment when Shin attacks him from behind. He was on his knees again and almost got knocked out. That had been better because they beat him until he was unconscious. Kenji and Daeun got back from the park. When they got there, they saw Songjun getting kidnapped. Daeun was terrified. Kenji yells at Shin to stop, but he gives him the middle finger and leaves in his van. Daeun couldn't stop crying, but Kenji promised her that he would bring him back safely. Kenji was holding his anger back for the shake of Daeun, but he was fuming with anger and wanted to crush Shin once and for all. He gets Daeun to safety and goes home to ask his uncles for help, but they were all drunk and asleep. He thinks of getting the police for help, but as he was about to make a call, he got a call from Sujin. He immediately picked up the phone, but on the other side of the phone was none other than Shin. We see that he has her as a hostage. Shin threatened Kenji not to bring his uncles or police, otherwise he'd hurt Sujin pretty badly. All the while Sujin just sat there without saying anything. Kenji couldn't believe how low Shin was playing. He was furious and just wanted to beat the crap out of him, and he was going to do that alone. So he decided to go there on his own, without his uncles or the police. When Kenji got out of the house, he saw Kenji waiting for him. She was there to give him a ride, but he didn't want her to come along as it was dangerous for her there. She didn't understand what he was talking about. Kenji told her everything that was going on. Hearing that, Yuji gets very angry and curses Shin. But even after hearing all that, she insisted on giving him a ride there. Kenji made her promise her that she'd return after leaving him there. They both get on the bike and Yeji asked him to hold on to her waist, otherwise he'll fall. But Kenji just held on to her shirt, which annoyed Yeji a little. Soon, they arrive at the abandoned factory where Shin was holding them. He told Yeji to go back, saying either he or Shin would work out of there alive. But Yeji knew that there was no way Shin would be alone and fight him fairly. Inside the factory, the thugs were afraid that Kenji might bring his uncles, but Shin assured them that he wouldn't make such a mistake. He wasn't that dumb. Then he goes up to Songjun and asked him if he'd even come while hitting him. Shin starts slapping him brutally to the point Songjun starts bleeding, while Shin laughs like a maniac. But Songjun is still gazing at him, which makes him even more angry, and he starts hitting him even more brutally. Sujin sees this and asks him if he is going to do the same with Kenji. He looked at her in anger and assured her that he'd do even worse with him, and if she talked one more time, he'd do the same with her too. She apologized to him and stayed silent. She thinks to herself how she doesn't like bad boys anymore and begs Kenji to come and save her. Shin informs him that she is just bait for Kenji and calls her the B word. But the others were still not sure that Kenji wouldn't bring his uncle. Kenji assured them, saying he had thought of that too. We see a gangster waiting in a van outside. Just then, Kenji arrives there. He was fuming with anger. Shin asked him if he had brought his gangster, to which Kenji replied why he would bring his uncles when he was a gangster himself. Shin makes fun of him for bluffing and trying to act tough. Sujin calls for him, thinking to herself how he was there to save her. Kenji was surprised to see her there too. Shin told him how hard it was for them to capture Songjun, but even if he was strong, he still couldn't win against a group. Then he orders his lackeys to attack while smiling menacingly. One of them says how they didn't need to attack him all at once, saying he was the same loser Kenji after all. He attacked him on his own, but Kenji dodges his attack and uses his momentum against him by kneeling to his face. The guy was out in just one move. Kenji then told them to release them, otherwise he'd tear the guy's hair off his scalp. But even after he tore off his hair, none of them reacted. Kenji says that he shouldn't expect trash like them to care about their friend. Kenji threatens to take on all of them. Shin mocks him for saying such nonsense. Kenji knew it'd be hard for him to win against them. His only hope of winning was if he managed to free Songjun. Kenji attacked Shin, but he dodged his attack and landed a powerful hit on him. He told Kenji how he was holding back last time because of his bald uncle, but Kenji was aiming to grab him so he couldn't run. Shin thought he was gonna use his technique again, but Kenji just simply started punching him again and again. Seeing Shin getting beat up, one of them attacks Kenji with a club, but Kenji ate that without flinching. One more of them kicks him, but Kenji grabs his leg, uses one of his techniques, and bites his leg. We see that Yeji was still there and was impressed at how well Kenji fought. Just then she sees Songjun tied up. Songjun signals her to make her move now when they are distracted. While they are busy fighting Kenji, she sneaks behind them and starts to untie him. Just then Sujin sees her helping him and yells at her to help her as well. Shin and the others notice Yeji helping him. Kenji warned him to look out, but it was already too late. Shin got to her first and hit her with a club. She passes out immediately. While Kenji was distracted, the other bullies started hitting him brutally. They beat him to the point he was about to pass out. Sujin starts crying seeing Kenji getting beaten up, while Shin laughs at the mess he had made. He orders his lackeys to hold Kenji as he is about to play ball with his head. Kenji braces himself for the attack, but the attack doesn't come. We see that Songjun was holding the club. He wasn't tied. Shin looks up to see why he can't move when a punch comes flying to him. While the others were freezing after seeing Songjun free, Kenji managed to get them off of him. Songjun told Kenji to take care of Yeji and Sujin while he held them back. Kenji goes to Sujin to save her. She apologizes to him and asks him to help her stand up as her legs are numb. She falls on top of him, which makes Yeji furious. Kenji asked her to help Yeji, to which she replies that her legs were numb though, but she agrees to it half-heartedly. But Yeji refuses to get help from her and tells her not to touch her. Kenji goes to help Songjun. Songjun informed Kenji that he'd be okay because they had weapons, but Kenji was determined to crush all of them and was ready. Songjun reminded him that he was way stronger than them. All they needed to do now was to take them out one by one. Kenji was on the same page. Shin gets furious at their cockiness, and all of them attack them. Sujin was taking them down one by one. One of them attacked them with a club from behind, but Songjun ate it like it was nothing, and the club broke instead. The guy knew he had messed up, but it was too late. Songjun took down two of them in an instant, but his legs were still not working properly. That's why he couldn't move properly. Shin already knew Songjun was way too strong, that's why he attacked Kenji. But Kenji was not a pushover anymore. He dodges the attack and grabs him by the collar. Then he proceeds to lift him with just one hand and slams his head on the ground. The thugs realize Kenji is on the same level as Songjun. Kenji felt a burning feeling in his arm. This was the same feeling he used to feel every night. He folded his shirt and showed his monstrous arm. One of them attacked him thinking he was just bluffing, but Kenji caught his punch and crushed it with his grip. Another one of them tries to attack him, but Songjun takes care of him. They were terrified. Having no choice left, Shin calls the gangster waiting outside. The rest of them try to buy time until then. They attack all at once, but they split in the midway. Most of them go towards Songjun. Kenji warns him, but Songjun can't move. All of them gang up on him and start beating him. Kenji tries to help him, but Shin reminds him he is his opponent. He stripes his clothes so that Kenji can't use his grip to hold him. Songjun calms himself down and starts taking them down one by one. He takes two of them down, but as he was about to attack the third one, one of the guys attacked his legs, which made him miss the target. They realize it is his weak point and start attacking his legs alone. Kenji was worried about him, but Shin punched him and told him he was the one he should be worried about. Shin was just buying at this point. Outside the factory, the gangster guy gets out of the car. He was angry at them for calling him and was heading inside. He remarks how he would have never agreed to it if it wasn't for Saiwon who asked him. We see it was Lee Saiwon, the Fire Bear Gang boss's right-hand man, who was the one who gave him this mission. Inside the factory, Kenji was still fighting Shin, but Shin was holding his own pretty well against him. Kenji wanted to take care of Shin and help Songjun, but he sees that Songjun has already taken care of all of them. Shin is terrified after seeing that and runs to call the gangster again, but Kenji hits him in the face while he is distracted. Shin had enough and he brings out the knife he was saving for Kenji. Songjun tries to help him but he can't get up. Just then, he sees the gangster guy and wonders if he is one of Kenji's uncles. But soon he realizes the guy was there to beat him up. He warns Kenji to look out, but it is already too late. The guy manages to land a clean hit on him. Song tries to help him but falls on his knees. Shin threatened to take out his eyes if he tried to get up again. The guy was disappointed at how weak Kenji was. He was originally planning to change sides, but seeing how weak he was, he changed his mind and decided to cut off the route there. Kenji blocks his attack, but even after blocking, he can feel the power. The guy attacked him again, and this time Kenji grabbed his fist and used his potato crush technique. But this didn't work on him. Kenji realizes the guy is on another level. He thinks about the training. The second uncle had taught him a technique that he could use if runs into someone stronger and bigger than him. This trick was only exclusive to him because of his monstrous grip. In the present, Kenji got up and jumped in the air. He wrapped himself around the guy and used his double axe technique. He starts attacking his collarbone with his axe skill. The guy couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. As Kenji was about to land his final hit, the guy grabbed his hand and tossed him while laughing at him. Kenji was surprised, but Songjun knew he couldn't take a gangster on, was impossible from the start. As the second round was about to begin, they heard a police siren. The guy didn't want to deal with the police, so he ran away. It was the first and second uncle came with the police. The first uncle was furious and was determined to kill whoever tried to lay their hand on the Fire Bear Gang's successor. While the gangster guy tries to run away, Kenji chases him down, but the guy pushed him and ran into the van. On the other hand, one of the thugs came crawling back outside. When he sees the first uncle, he thinks he is a police officer and asks him for help, but the second uncle recognizes him and drags him out to the cops. When he goes inside worried about Kenji, he sees all the thugs on the ground and Songjun handling them. Shin also thinks he is a cop and tries to play the victim, but he soon realizes who he is. Songjun told him Kenji ran after one gangster. Hearing this, the first uncle was shocked, thinking other gangs had started to make their move. Just then, Kenji comes there. The first uncle was relieved to see him and asked him if the gangster guy did that to his face. Kenji assured him that he was fine and the one who did that to him was Shin. The first uncle orders Songjun to move out of the way and hits Shin so hard that he goes flying. The others see him and try to pretend as if they are unconscious, but the first uncle threatens to beat the crap out of them if they keep pretending. They immediately got up and he dragged them out of there. They handed the thugs over to the cops and told them that they were the attackers, but someone named Detective Kim told the cops not to take a gangster's word for it. But when he sees Kenji, he immediately recognizes him, asking him if they did that to him. When Kenji confirmed the accusation, Detective Kim didn't listen to anyone and took all of them with him and ordered the second uncle to come to the police station with him. The second uncle assured Kenji that he'd take care of it and kill the guy who attacked him. After they were gone, Songjun left for home as Dayun was worried sick for him. The third uncle also came there yelling to kill whoever did that to him, but the second uncle told him that everything was already over. Kenji wondered if Yuji and Sujin were at the hospital, but they were still hid because Sujin was too scared to ride with her. While Kenji was showing his concern for Yeji and advising her to go see a doctor, Sujin threw herself on top of him, asking him to hug her back as she was scared. She kept saying how she hated bad boys now. Yeji was annoyed again. Sujin asked him to go on a walk with her as this area is close to the neighborhood they used to live in. She asked Yeji if she'd be fine for 10 minutes, but Yeji claps back saying she was also scared and they should go on the walk together. Kenji reminisces while walking around the neighborhood, pointing out all the areas where they used to play as a kid. Kenji asks her if her father still lives there, to which she replies that she wasn't in contact with him. Yeji was pushed to see them together, but she was also curious about the place where Kenji grew up. Sujin shows him the place under the bridge where she used to cry and he used to comfort her. That was when Kenji decided to become Sujin's ideal type of guy. He remembers how many things happened after that. He thinks back to how she was the one who said she liked kind people and sweet people and hated bad people. But ever since she suddenly said that she liked bad people, he had been struggling to live like a bad person. He went around acting like a bully and bullying people weaker than him, and how he also accepted to go through the successes training as well. He had become pretty bad now. She grabbed his hand and took him to the place where they used to hide as kids. All the while Yeji was waiting for them, craving for a smoke. Sujin remarks how she never thought he was from a gangster family. She thought that all of his uncles just looked tough, that's all. Moreover, she never imagined him to be a gangster himself. She told him how he was always so kind and righteous. Kenji thinks to himself how for 10 years of his life, he did all that for her. Sujin said to him that she didn't like bad people like his father Shin anymore. She was never gonna date someone bad, but someone who was kind. A kind person like Kenji. Hearing this, Kenji was in disbelief. It took him so long to become bad. He could no longer go back to being kind again. He was now the Fire Bear Gang's successor. Seeing him deep in his thoughts, she asked him if he was okay, to which he replies, not really. He was exhausted trying to be her type of guy. He just watched the stars while thinking about how he had liked her for 10 years, how he worked so hard for her, and all of this kind of changed him a lot. She leans off his shoulder telling him to talk to him if something was bothering him, and that she was the only one he had, only one he could rely on. This makes Kenji think about all the people whom he had gotten close to, all of his uncles who cared so much for him, his second uncle who'd do anything for him, the first uncle who'd kill anyone who dared to lay a hand on him, Yeji, who'd been supportive of him all this time, his school buddies, Songjun, her little sister, and most of all his father, who was now proud of him. It was not true anymore. He now had a lot of people on his side, and he's the Fire Bear Gang's successor. It's not just any gang, it's the Fire Bear Gang. She remembers how after the recent incident, Kenji was a pretty good catch. She says that she likes him now, and asks him how he feels about her. This was the moment he had been waiting for 10 long years, and now that it was he was hesitating. She started pushing him, saying how she mustered up the courage to confess and that he should do the same. But Kenji just sits there without uttering a word. She says how he was too kind to say no to her and was too kind for his good. She gave him time to think about it and asked him to give his answer later. She proposes they should get back to others, and Kenji immediately agrees to that. Seeing how quickly he got up, she worryingly asked him how could he get up immediately. She asked him if he was the same Kenji. Kenji told her he needed time to think about it and ask others. Sujin found it impossible. The Kenji she knew would never turn his back on her as he was doing right now. And that's when she realized that he was never going to come back to her. She yelled his name and asked him if he hated her because she kept doing annoying things, or because she dated Shin. She starts apologizing to him. She even says that she was going to change for him. But Kenji doesn't stop and keeps working. She starts getting desperate and asked him if he is going to date Yeji. If that's the case, I'm gonna be much better than her, she states. She says how she was gonna put in a lot of effort to become someone he likes. Kenji stops after hearing this and advises her not to do that because he finds that to be very hard. He says this with teary eyes. Sujin was stunned to hear that and was left speechless. In a flashback, Sujin remembers the time when they were kids. Few kids were teasing and mocking her for not having a mother, and how her father beats her. She requests them to stop calling her that while crying. Just then, Kenji comes there to save her from them. He is a fearful kid with an angry look. The kid mocks him as well for not having a mother. So Kenji just pinches him, but the guy still wasn't stopping. As Kenji is about to hit him again, Sujin asked him to stop saying hitting others is bad. After they ran away, Sujin thanked him for helping her, to which he replied that there was no need as he just didn't like them saying out loud that she didn't have a mother. She remarks how he was so kind. Kenji freaks out saying he was not, and that his dream was to become a gangster. Just then, Sujin's drunk dad calls for her, cursing at her. Before going back, she says to him that it wasn't their fault that they didn't have a mother, so he should cheer up. Sujin thinks to herself how Kenji was her only childhood friend in her toughest and loneliest times. In fact, he was more than just a friend. She liked him more than her father who used to hit her, more than her mother who abandoned her. He was a reliable friend who was always on her side throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school. We see how even her classmates started saying they looked good together. But they also inform her that if they get into a relationship and then break up, things will become awkward between them. She'd be just losing a friend. Sujin hadn't thought of that. She couldn't lose Kenji as she wouldn't have anyone else left on her side. She couldn't afford to lose him. She would become alone in the world. Kenji had to be on her side. Kenji understood her no matter what she did. He was like a family to her. He was her precious friend. But now that precious friend was going far from her, and she couldn't do anything about it. She wanted to stop him and tell him that she couldn't lose him and ask her not to abandon her. But she couldn't utter the words and Kenji left her. Kenji goes to Yeji and apologizes to her for making her wait so long. She overheard the conversation and asked him if he was okay, to which he replies he was okay while holding back his tears. Yeji proposes they should get out of here quickly. Kenji expresses his concern for Sujin, but Yeji assures him that they'll pick her up in the car. She told him again to hold on to her waist as they were about to leave. She thought it'd be the same as the last time, but much to her surprise, this time he held on to her, making her blush. He thanks her for doing all this for him, but she says that there is nothing to thank her for, and accelerates the scooter in excitement. On the way, Kenji wondered if Sujin was gonna be okay. They arrive at the location where the third uncle is waiting for them in a car. Kenji asked him to pick up Sujin before going to the police station. Kenji tried to call her but he couldn't reach her. When they arrived there, she wasn't there. Kenji tried to call her again but to no avail. At the police station, when the officer asked them to confirm if they were the attackers, Shin told them that they were the victims, not the attackers. But Detective Kim wasn't having it and threatened to call their parents. The other thugs suggest that it was just school violence and that they should not involve their parents. They do voluntary work as well. But Detective Kim burst their bubbles, informing them that this would be treated as a criminal case. Shin was thinking his life was done for. Some of them were terrified while one of them assured them, saying they wouldn't receive criminal punishment as they were beaten up as well. Just then, they hear someone screaming outside. It was the squint-eyed guy's mom. She entered the room and started taking her son outside without saying anything. When the detective told her that she'd be charged with obstruction of justice and that her could beat up some kids, she yelled at him, asking him if he didn't know who her husband was. He was close to the station chief. She blamed his friends, calling them failures. When her son asked her to stop saying that to his friends, she started belittling them even more. While they were arguing, one of the other thugs' father also came there. When the detective told him what his son did, he opposed him, saying boys fight all the time, that's how they grow up to be men, and that the school violence committee should handle this. But Detective Kim and the uncles weren't going to let that happen. The first uncle saw it not going as he had planned, so he told them how they grew up to beat someone, and that 2 girls were involved as well. Stealing a car and unlicensed driving were also criminal charges. The father guy got angry at them for getting involved and asked who were they. He told him that he was from the Firebag gang. Hearing this, the guy's tone shifted, and he asked the first uncle if they should solve it themselves, as he was also a gangster who had connections with the boss. But when the first uncle told him that the guy his son beat up was none other than the boss's son, the guy was speechless after that. The mom asked where the victims were and that they just have to apologize to them. But just then Kenji and others enter the room, denying any form of apology. The Fire Bear Gang's lawyer also came there and gave them some more proof. After a while, the detective asked them who was the one who stole the car and drove without a license. Shin couldn't take the gangster's name because he had threatened to kill him. Shin accepts that he was the one who stole the car and drove it. But the first uncle knew he was trying to cover up for the guy. He told Kenji and the others to go home while they cleaned up the mess. After seeing all of this, the second uncle concludes that there was a traitor in their gang. He calls for an emergency meeting. He asks the second uncle what they should do if they found the traitor, to which he replies that he'd kill him with his own hands. The first uncle was on the same page. Detective Kim assured Kenji that he'd try his best to bring the thugs to justice. The detective told him how he was proud of their town and won the city's Courageous Citizen Award 2 times. Kenji got teary-eyed, thinking to himself how he was not the same person anymore. The first uncle took Songjun with him as he needed to talk to him about something as well. The first uncle advised him to go to the hospital first, but Songjun knew he'd be admitted to the emergency room and wouldn't be able to meet his sister, who was worried sick for him, so he decided to just endure it for a little bit more. The third told Kenji to sit in the front, but the fourth uncle accused him of trying to get in the way of their dating life. Only then did the third uncle realize what sin he was about to commit. After that, they start shipping them and act weird. Yeji quickly realized that the uncles were trying to help them get together. Even on the way, They tell Kenji how it was okay to come home late. Kenji asks them to just drive and stop acting weird. The third uncle says how he made things awkward between them and asked him to say something. But the fourth uncle teases them even more, asking Yeji what she likes about Kenji. They get to their bike and they drop them off there. The uncles left while assuring Kenji that they'd explained the first uncle everything so he shouldn't hurry. Kenji apologizes to Yeji on behalf of his weird uncles. They get on the bike and Kenji holds on to her waist, this time without her telling him to do so. She is off guard, and in excitement, her wound opens up. They stop by Kenji's house to get treated. They laugh and have fun while remembering all the weird things they have gone through. Yeji seriously looks at him, but Kenji has no idea what is going on. She leans forward to kiss him, but he asks her if she is angry, that's why she is acting like that, and apologizes to her. This made Yeji furious, and she stormed off from there while calling him a loser, idiot, and all. He apologizes to her again and asked her to come back, but she doesn't stop. Just then, Songjun's sister started hitting her for being mean to Kenji, who was kind but weak. She wanted to thank Kenji and dragged Songjun there. Daeun asked Songjun to beat up Yeji. Songjun apologized for interrupting them when things were going so well between them. Yeji acts as if nothing is going, calling him an idiot. Kenji also chimes in while being clueless, saying they were only hitting each other though. Yeji again got angry and left the place while calling him idiot, stupid, and all kinds of things. After she left, Songjun said to Kenji that he needed to talk to him about something. It was related to the Super Alliance. All the while the uncles were watching them through a telescope. They were frustrated to see Kenji had no frizz, and he was clueless. They needed to improve his dating life. They wanted to get on with that plan right away, but Songjun was with him. They decided to bring them inside. When the first uncle asked them if they knew how to play with kids, they showed him how they would play with her, with big smiles. The second uncle smacked them and told them he'd do that himself. The second uncle comes outside and greets her with a kitchen knife. She got so scared seeing him and strapped herself around Songjun's leg. Kenji scolded him for scaring her and told him to bring teddy bear or something. The second uncle heard the bear and ripped off his shirt to show her the bear tattoo behind his back. Kenji was stunned and told him she'd be terrified for life. But much to their surprise, she finds the bear to be cute. After he took her inside, Songjun told Kenji that the rumor of his taking over the school had spread like wildfire. The Super Alliance would be on his back now, so he needed to be careful. First, they needed to take as much information about them as possible through Park 2, who was still with the Super Alliance. They even approached Songjun and would have approached Kenji as well if he hadn't threatened to crush them. Then Songjun asked him if he is planning to take them on by himself, to which Kenji replies that he had given his words already and he couldn't back down now. Songjun used to not care about alliances or other bullies, but he had changed his mind as well because those guys would come for him too, even though he wasn't doing anything. So before they came for him, he'd crush them first. Kenji was thrilled that he was on his side and asked him if they were an alliance as well now. But Songjun wasn't too keen to call it alliance. They were just fighting together, that's all. But Kenji didn't care and called it an alliance anyway. The second uncle was making cookies with Daeun and was doing the bear dance with her when the first uncle came there. He sees him half-naked in front of a kid and gets furious. He charged him saying what was he doing and called him an abuser. The second uncle tried to explain but he wasn't listening. Daeun caught onto his leg to stop him and explained to him that she was Songjun's sister. He apologizes to her and does the bear dance with them on her demand. Kenji and Songjun see them and ask what is going on. They invite them to dance as well and force Songjun to do it as well. Songjun was ashamed of what he had just done. After Daeun was asleep, they got on with the meeting. Kenji asked him why he was so serious and where were the other uncles. This was a sensitive topic, so the first uncle asked everyone who was not an executive to stand by. It was about the gangster who had attacked him. He told Kenji that he was from their gang. The second uncle asks for any characteristic that is specific to the guy. They recall him having a huge scar on his face. Hearing this, the second uncle starts spouting nonsense, saying how the fourth uncle had also a huge scar on his face. But the third uncle asked him to calm down as Kenji would have recognized him if that were to be the case. And also, they all had some kind of scars on their faces as well. Kenji assured him that it wasn't any of the uncles. The guy had a unique kind of scar on his cheeks. Songjun describes his build and other facial details. Kenji realized how the guy was talking to him as if he already knew him, so he had to be someone from their gang. The third and second uncles were going insane and threatened to go to war with them, but the first uncle told them to shut up and calm down. They couldn't just point a finger at anyone without having solid proof, even though they knew who was behind it. They then move on to their next matter regarding the Super Alliance. The second uncle tells them the history of the Super Alliance. how they always used to fight each other all the time, and the area was filled with gang fights, until a legendary fighter unified the schools. That legendary fighter being the second uncle himself. He was the one who created the Super Alliance, but they used to call it a different name. They were shocked to hear that. He told them that they should ask the rest of the current leader of the Super Alliance, Park Do. On the other hand, Park was bored at his house when Yeji got back. He asked her to cook something for her, but she was in a bad mood. Just then he gets a call from the second uncle who explains the situation to him. Park was thrilled because this was the moment he was waiting for. Yeji was still mad at Kenji for not having a clue about what she was doing. It didn't help that he hadn't texted her yet. She didn't want to text first because of their pride, but she was impatient and texted him anyway. Just then, her brother enters her room storming and asks her if she wants to get together with Kenji. He said he'd help with Kenji. At first, she didn't believe him and thought he was just teasing her. But when he told her his plan, she was ready to go through that. The plan was he would tell her about the Super Alliance and she would tell Kenji. By doing that, she'd get a lot of time alone with Kenji. She started dreaming about it and was ready to write down every detail. But he orders her to cook for him first. This time she went running to cook for him. Turns out this was the master plan he was thinking of earlier. If her sister dates him and eventually marries him, he'd have a good life in the gang. He was determined to make sure they date each other, and he'll help Yeji become the lady boss. He laughs menacingly just thinking about this. On the other hand, the second uncle continued his legendary story. He used to fight every day to unite the area and to create a super alliance. While he was roaming around picking up fights, that's when he met his first uncle. The first uncle remarks how he was even more fearful back then. Songjun asks him if it'd be right if they destroyed the alliance because he was the one who founded it after all. But the second uncle sets aside his feelings and permits them to disband the alliance. Kenji suggests just beating the bad people and not destroying the whole alliance. After the meeting was done and Kenji left with Songjun, the first uncle warned the other two uncles about the situation. If they keep investigating, they might find something that could lead to war in the gang. The first uncle says how he hoped no one in their gang was involved. At the Fire Bagang branch office, the boss's right-hand man, Lee Sai-won, was beating the guy who introduced him to the guy, saying he must get punished if his junior makes a mistake. Meanwhile, the guy was just sitting there trembling in fear and apologizing to them. The man orders his secretary to make things right. The scene shifts to a boat in the ocean. We see the secretary throwing a can in the ocean. Now that they had tied up the loose end, they needed to make it look like they were helping the other side in a fight against other gangs. Just then, he gets a call from the first uncle who asks him to come to the meeting tomorrow, to which he says he is busy and would think about it. Just then, the first uncle hears seagulls in the background and wonders if they'd already taken care of the guy. Now there was no way for them to find anything even if they killed everyone on Lee Sai-won's side. He was too late. He had no choice but to observe the situation for now. Lee Sai-won remarks how the first uncle had good instincts as usual, but even he won't find anything on them now.